Not the best track in some circumstances to start the final third, at least for the driver's point of view, because it is just so tricky. But for us as spectators, you know, it's going to be chaos. There's going to be loads of action. There's going to be loads of opportunities for things to happen. And I can't really wait to see what the driver's going to do today.
It's been a bit of a heat wave in most parts of Europe, so we're all having to deal with that. But obviously, if anyone caught the pro race a bit earlier on, there was a bit of weather in the area, which obviously you had to deal with, Cam. Hopefully, we're focused on a dry race here. That is the expectation, that it should be dry throughout the running of the 78-lap race. But it did creep up on us, and you know what this area is like.
Indeed, it certainly rained for a good half of the pro race just an hour ago, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple of drizzles here and there potentially, but I believe from the forecast it is nothing, you know, too like a monsoon, but at least a little bit of rain could be quite spicy around this wonderful street circuit as we're seeing the start of the qualifying laps now. And who is going to get on pole? Because we all know track position is so important around here.
Yeah, it really is, King. And so we'll see Colin Spork, our championship leader at the moment in the World Championship. But the last couple of rounds for him have not gone well. Of course, we had the rerun of round 3 at the Japanese Grand Prix, finished 7th there. And then the last round of the season in Italy at Monza, just a 4th place finish. The 4-time race winner this season needs to respond straight away, heading straight into the casino square. Oh my God, so down to the hairpin rather. Massive kick of oversteer on the brakes, downshifting, very, very tricky to wrestle the car down there.
Yeah, that hairpin can be very important because obviously it's so tight. A little bit sliding on the rear end is going to help you rotate the car, but you've got to do it to perfection because if you rotate it too much, you can just lose time on exit. So for sure, that is a technique that you need to practice. And it's obviously still purple in that first sector for Colin Spork. Sector 2 is coming up as we enter the swimming pool section. Just a personal best. Grankvist has beaten him there in the second sector.
Jan Grankvist, super effort in that second sector in the early stages from the Super Venturi man, but we'll see what he can respond with out of the final corner. Another massive kick of oversteer. A reminder, they only have 3 laps in this session. Colin Spork will head up to 2nd place behind Jan Grankvist, who goes provisionally up onto pole. But yes, just 3 laps, 3-time laps over the session. They have the track to themselves, but that's not easy when you've got so much pressure on your shoulders.
Yeah, with just how crucial the qualifying is as well. Those 3 laps will go very quickly indeed. And already just a couple of tenths separating the top 3. Dennis Jordan up there as well as we focus on Jukes here coming through that second sector. Personal best, of course, with it being their first lap. So a little bit hard to see with where the times are. But that is, I can tell you, about half a second off what Grankvist did in the middle sector. So this isn't going to be anywhere near the front row, at least for Zolt Jukes. But let's see how he does as he comes across the line. And that is going to be 8th place.
Yeah, not good. It wasn't a great pro race as well for the Ground Effect team. I think they had all 3 cars retiring from that race, so we'll see how they can do here. Mitchie Hoyer goes up into 4th position, and here comes Alexei, one of the drivers battling for the championship, currently runs 2nd in the standings at the moment. He crosses the line, only goes to 6th. That is quite a few positions behind his main championship rival.
Yeah, that's a little bit tricky in terms of positions, but it's only 3 tenths, so I'm sure there's some improvements to come over the course of the next 6 minutes or so. And it does look like the times are slightly slower than what we saw in the pro race, but what we are being told that the grip on the track is ever so slightly lower, but that will just increase as the session goes on. So maybe the final lap is going to be the crucial one.
Here's Chance Pantelis, who dropped about a 10th in the first sector to Jan Grankvist. Second sector drops around a 2nd. But to be fair, you've got to build yourself up in a session like this. Your first time lap is never really going to be the outright fastest. You've got to do a couple just to get yourself into the rhythm. And what does Chance Pantelis do across the line at the moment? Obviously, yet has at a time and goes just ahead of his teammate into 14th. Not a great qualifying showing at the moment from the Edge eSports bunch as we ride on board with Dennis Jordan going even faster in that first sector.
Yeah, that is a nice sector. That's almost 1.5 tenths actually quicker than Grankvist in that first sector. So that is a mighty first sector. The issue is it's only about 2 corners, so it's hard to get a pure judgment until we get towards the end of this second sector. It's the longest sector, and it's a really technical one with all the tricky little corners in it before getting to Raskas and the final sector. So through the swimming pool, we will see. But Dennis Jordan just so close to all the barriers. This looks quite fast.
Yeah, it took maybe a bit too much curb of the first part of the swimming pool section. Still a decent second sector. Not amazing, but still might be enough to challenge for pole position. Comes towards the final corner as Anthony Nodson punches it out onto that start-finish straight, putting all 800 brake horsepower down onto the road as he races his way towards the line. It's good enough to move him up onto provisional pole position, a 1:11.152, but watch out for Colin Spork, who's improving further still. An okay first sector. It was about a 10th down on what Dennis Jordan did. Unicorns of Love out of the final corner, and what does Colin Spork do as he heads his way, the championship leader, up towards the line once again? He takes pole position with an 11.057.
Wow, this is coming in thick and fast now. I think the track is definitely improving as the laps come in. So this third and final lap coming up for those guys is going to be so important. As we see Brackshock here up in 5th place, now down to 6th, as I think that's Hoyer just jumping up the way. So it wasn't actually jumping up the way, I should say. So this is looking pretty good for a couple of the drivers, but Brackshock, he's had a bit of a, an up and down season. Let's see if he can redeem himself over the course of this race today, as he's going to jump up into 4th place.
Yeah, super lap time there from Yanis Brackshock. Had a pole position in the second round of the season at the Malaysian Grand Prix, but unfortunately retired from that race. This is on board with Michi Hoyer, who, to be fair to him, did have a decent drive and returned to the podium in the previous round at the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. It was only his second podium of the season. He wants more. He's hungry for more, of course. A driver who's won plenty of races at this level, but you can kind of see coming down from the Nivelle chicane, the level of aggression comparatively to when we were on board with Dennis Jordan into that section of the track. He's not looking quite as feisty, quite as attacking of the curbs. What's he like in that second sector as he crosses over the split? Looking pretty decent, but not pole worthy.
Yeah, had a couple of stabs at the swimming pool there, and again also in Raskas, not maybe 110% confident with the car, but of course these guys have Formula Pro tomorrow as well, so they've done at the same tracks, they've done loads and loads of laps around here to practice. Where does Mitch Hoyer goes up into 3rd place as well, as Siebel also improved on his last lap, but still there down in 6th place.
Do kind of wonder how many drivers, you've got only 3 laps. So technically, you have to account for an out lap, a time lap, and an in lap. Obviously, you've got to do your out lap, then do your time lap, and then you can escape from the circuit. You as a driver, would you want to do those 3 basically in the same part of qualifying, so you're getting them out of the way, you're keeping yourself in the rhythm, rather than doing one at the start of the session, waiting a little bit, and then maybe doing a couple?
Oh yeah, that's what you have to do the trade-off. Is the trade-off the rhythm of doing the laps quickly? Are you someone who needs that sort of adrenaline rush, or are you someone to wait? I don't know. I personally like waiting, because I think that extra sort of maybe half a tenth you get at track grip at the end of the session is just as important. But for sure, keeping that rhythm going is so important.
Loving hearing these engines, by the way, screaming around these streets once again. It sounds absolutely fantastic as we ride on board with Dennis Jordan towards the back. Bit of a deep breath, throws it in. Oh, judges it almost perfectly. I think he just rubbed the wall just a little bit too much on the exit. But still, the second sector's looking pretty decent here for Dennis Jordan. The first sector, he lost a 10th comparatively to his previous first sector. And he did lose about another 10th to Colin Spork in that second sector. What's he going to do out towards the line? It was his final sector that was super strong on the previous lap. He comes across it. He improves again, but misses out by 0.02 of a second.
Oh, so close, and I wonder how important those couple of hundredths of a second are going to be, with obviously the championship rivals towards the front of the field, and Spork at the moment on that provisional pole position. But Dennis Jordan is done, of course. He just has to sit and wait now. Is anyone going to overcome him? We are soon to find out. Brackshock is here. He hasn't improved in that first sector, but it's still a fairly decent one.
Yeah, Noah Roivers session done in 9th position. Everyone else still out on the racetrack, with the exception of Dennis Jordan and George Chatsapantelis. So there's still a fair few improvements that can come in, like that lap time from Damian Skovron moves him up into 7th position. So we do still have a few coming in. Yanis Brackshock's not really improving. This is certainly not a time that will challenge for the front row of the grid. I don't think he'll be improving at all on this lap. At the moment, has a 1:11.392 set. He'll come out towards the line. I don't think there'll be any improvement from Yanis Brackshock. He finds a little bit of time in that final sector, but overall was about half a tenth slower. Look at the lap time though, coming in from Alex Siebel, improving a bit in the first sector. This could challenge for 3rd.
Oh, he certainly could, but Michi Hoyer, that is a slow first sector. Couple of tenths down, really, on what he wants. Maybe, lucky, it might be a 10th down on what he needs, but let's see as he comes into the Nivelle chicane. We do have DRS there, coming down the hill out of the tunnel, so that could be an important part for the race. But now for qualifying, what is Michi going to do in this second sector? Rising it right up against the wall, into back, and coming through the second sector split. Is he going to improve? Yes, he does, at least to himself.
Yeah, but we need to focus on Alex Siebel, who's coming out of the final corner up towards the line. Great second sector from on Alex Ebel. He might be challenged for third. He might be challenging for pole. What does he do? He gets pole. Gets into the 10s. A 10.966 from Alex Ebel. A super lap time across the board as Michi Hoyer sets the fastest final sector on his last lap. But it isn't good enough for him to improve position. Does get down to an 11.1 as Colin Sporks crawling around the circuit. His session's done. He cannot challenge Alex Ebel. And our top 2 in the championship, a top 2 in the session as Jan Grankvist mounts the curb through the Neville chicane.
God, he was certainly pushing it. That's not going to be an improvement, but it might still be worth just getting the rhythm through the final couple of corners. Wasn't also not doing an improvement, but Leonov down in P12 and Panzer at the back of the field. No time set so far, but looks like he's going to be setting one as Leonov goes up into P10.
Super effort in towards the end of the session as we see a bit of a crash there from Robin Panzer coming out across the line. I think with that done, all of our drivers have finished that. Got to say, great qualifying from Jan Grankvist. That is absolutely superb to get his way up inside the top 5. But let's take a look at your order. Obviously, just 3 rounds left to go in the championship, and for Alex Ebel, that could be a very important pole position indeed for the Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports team. He'll start ahead of his championship rival in Colin Spork. Dennis Jordan in third with Michi Hoyer and Jan Grankvist rounding out the top 5. Janis Brakshock, Damian Skovron and then Jan Voichnitzer before we find Jake Denahan, who improved inside the top 10. So I was kind of throwing some shade towards Edge Esports, but he did manage to respond at the end of that session. Ivan Leonov down in 10th position. The rest of your runners starting from the 11th position will be Sandar Callas, Noah Roivers finishing that session a bit earlier for the Netrex P1 Sim Grand Prix, Danny Van Den Eet, Zoltschuch, Adam Rainey just 15th place on the grid ahead of Older Menga, Pinsesh, Chatsapanthelis and Robin Panzer, who we saw crashing across the line. Now we do have a few sponsors of course in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship, not only with SimLab and Masita Esports but also with 3D Wrap as well. Let's take a look.
Round 8 Azure Grand Prix, and also in Formula Pro we are at Azure, so perfect weekend coming up for all the sim racing as we go around the final turn to start our fly back around the circuits, turn 1 heavier braking zone. Make sure to make use of all the track available as you go up the hill towards the casino, a double apex back fender. Once again, we want to get close to the walls and use as much ground available as possible as we go into Mirabeau. Easy on the braking as the car can become a little bit loose there. Full lock through the hairpin is the only time in the calendar you do it. And a double right hander where we want to maximise the track available as much as possible. Holding absolutely to the time in a short moment of breathing. As we're going to have braking zone for the innovation chicane, arguably the best incentive opportunity if there is any. Going into Tabak, if you want to kiss the inside wall, do not touch it. Through the arm chicane, which you can see line up with the walls, line up with the barriers, and then into the Rust Pass corner, first and second gear to be used into the final. So this makes a little bit twitchy on the exit. And across the line, guys, that is 1 lap here around the Super Grand Prix. So who can keep it out of the walls? We're going to find out.
Well, a super qualifying session complete, and Alex Siebel starting it from pole position, getting ready for 78 very, very important laps for anyone who wants to take the crown in the 2022 Formula SimRacing World Championship. Lewis McGlade alongside Cameron Rodger in the commentary booth. And Cam, after a thrilling qualifying session like that, how do you get ready with the high fuel loads once again? No refueling in the race. You've got to get yourself back into the rhythm. It's going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah, it certainly is, especially around here. The difference between obviously the qualifying and race laps is quite a lot, and that's just the way that the corners are, with it being actually quite fast, some of the corners for a street circuit. You've really got to get a feel for that extra weight. It's obviously going to be quite a few seconds a lap slower. So that is, going to be an important one, because 78 laps, and even though you can't win in the first half of the race, you can definitely lose it.
Yeah, I think the goal, more above all else, is to keep it out of the barriers on a day like this. You can't afford to bash them. You can get away with the odd scrape here and there. You might get a little bit of suspension damage, but if you hit a wall, yeah, you're not in ideal territory. Let's say that.
Yeah, the walls are everywhere around here, and you just got to keep it out. It's certainly going to be a race of attrition. Those who just get to the end are probably going to finish, easily inside top 50, maybe inside the top 10. So that is really the goal for those drivers a little bit further down who just want to pick up a few points.
Well, there were just 11 finishers in the last time we went racing in the streets of Azure in 2021, and it was Dennis Jordan winning from pole position. His teammate in the same position this year, starting from pole position, looking for that victory. The difference is that weight on Alex Siebel's shoulders. He knows that he's alongside his main championship rival. He knows that there's only 13 points between them in that championship. It's going to be incredibly close. It's going to be an incredible thrill ride. There we go. We can see the championship. Obviously, I can't count. It's 14 points between them, but it's fine. Colin Sport, though, is leading it. And like I say, Siebel's got that pressure on.
Certainly does. And it's one of those things where after this race, obviously there's only 2, which I know sounds silly, but that means that even though there's still 90 points on offer now, that means there's only 60 after this one. So with it being 24, if there's a big loss today for Siebel, that's going to make it very, very difficult after this one. Whereas on the flip side, it could be a very crucial race if Spork has a bad one like he has the last couple, and Siebel gets that back in. It's a really important race, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
2 races to go is a big part of the championship.
Yeah, you want to head into those final couple of races with the advantage. I know that sounds stupid. You want to hold the advantage from the very start of the season until the very end, of course, but we're not all Yerne Simičić. We can't all do that. Sometimes you need to just sort of react when you get to this point, when it gets to crunch time in the championship. And that's some things that some drivers are very, very good at, and some drivers less so. Some drivers kind of struggle when it gets to this point in the season. We're about to find out if Colin Spork and Alex Siebel struggle, or if they do find another level. Based on this qualifying session, neither of them are really struggling.
No, they're certainly not, and especially as you mentioned, there's obviously Formula Pro tomorrow, so lots of these drivers have done so much practice, knowing that they've got 2 races in 2 days, same car, same track, slightly different rules and sporting rules, but there's good reason to do a lot of practice. So I'm sure that is why all these guys are absolutely on it, because they know it's an important couple of days. So I don't think any of these guys, especially at the top, I don't think any of those guys have been slacking, because they know just how important this race can be.
Yeah, and like you say, it was the drivers that voted for this. They had a vote between here and between racing around the Daytona road course. Now, obviously, when they've got for quite a few of the drivers in the race, they've got a race to think about tomorrow as well with the rFactor 2 Formula Pro series. It makes sense that they were all going to try and pick a circuit like this where it's the same as what they're racing tomorrow, so they can use the practice twice rather than having to practice for a completely different circuit. But still, it's going to be difficult for them to keep their concentration up for 2 consecutive days around one of the hardest circuits that you can possibly go racing at.
Yeah, it's. I remember when it got voted in. I was speaking to Mitch Hoy. He wasn't overly happy because just because of the the intensity. It's it's not like racing at Monza or Daytona 2 days in a row where it's a lot more of a calmer race. This is intense. This is going to be a good hour and a half race of pure concentration, and of course it's hot today as well in Europe. So lots of these drivers, they're going to be melting by the end of it. But who can keep their cool, I think, is really who's going to come out on top.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's so easy on a day like this to lose control of the wheel, courtesy of it being just far, far too hot. I mean, it's a test of endurance in itself. Talking about an hour and a half's worth of pure focus. I mean, you just did it for about an hour in the Pro Championship race. And that was also in wet and stuff. I mean, we don't really know what to expect. It's very, very hard when it is this hot.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a lottery, really. And that's why, as I was saying, those who can keep their cool, those who can just nail their strategy with what they're going to do, they, don't get flustered in the situation in the heat, they are going to come out on top. This is not an easy race to win. And that is why, obviously, some of the drivers have struggled to win it in the past.
Yes, indeed. Well, let's take a look at the starting grid for the championship round here. Round number 8 of the season. Alex Siebel starting it from pole position alongside his championship rival in Colin Spork. Dennis Jordan will start from 3rd with Michi Hoyer in 4th. Jan Grankvist and Janis Brakshock in 5th and 6th with Damian Skovron. A late improvement up in the 7th. Jan Wojnitzer starting alongside in 8th. Having a good couple of races so far this season. Having a podium himself, looking for even more this afternoon. Jake Denahan and Ivan Leonov round out the top 10 before we find Sander Callis for Ground Effect Racing Team, who had a bad round in Pro. They're looking for something more here today, starting alongside Noah Roybers. Danny van der Neet and Zolt Schuch in 13th and 14th position before we find Adam Rainey and Tom Oldenmenger down in 16th. And final 3 drivers on the grid. We'll see Adam Pintesh, we'll see George Chatsapantelis, and we'll see Robin Panzer seeming to struggle a little bit around the twisty streets here in the Circuit d'Azur. But Cam, we'll talk strategy now. Let's focus on it. 78 laps. This is it's counter to how it is in real life. Everyone's sort of like in real life it's a very easy one-stop race. This is not the case here, is it?
No, it's not. I guess it's just the way maybe it works in the sim, but we still keep the tyre wear sort of rate as such, even though we go to the slower track. So obviously in real life, you go so much slower, you put so much less load into it, which is why they last a lot longer. Whereas here, we still wear the tyres because we're still sliding a bit, we're still spinning up the rears, coming out the corners, and it just means that doing a one-stop today is going to be difficult. Because if you think about it, even if you do 30 laps on the soft, that means you've still got 48 on the mediums to the end. So it's going to be very, very difficult indeed. But if you can keep the pace up and you can keep that advantage, then certainly the track position is going to be king. It's just, if you go for that one stop and your tyres absolutely fall off the cliff, you are going to start losing buckets of time.
Yeah, I mean, to simplify it and, to try and sort of explain it a little bit as well, I was chatting to a couple of drivers earlier on in the day, and they were saying to make a one-stop work, they need to aim for about 2% per lap used on the medium tyres. They're using about 3% when just driving normally. Now, that is an awful lot to save around a circuit like this.
It certainly is. So yeah, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of soft mediums, and then obviously medium soft for the people wanting to do the alternate. But look at all the softs in that top 10. They know that's going to get them off the line. They're going to keep the track position. But let's watch out who is going to do an undercut and try a 2-stop.
Yes, indeed. They'll all line themselves up into the grid positions. 19 cars with that short run down towards Sandoval. Only about 200 metres before they get into that first corner, that first apex, and the rise up towards Massenet. Alex Siebel controlling things from pole position as we get ready to go racing here for round number 8 in the Formula SimRacing World Championship of 2022. The race for the crown is officially on as Alex Siebel will lead us from pole position. A bit of wheel spin from him. Colin Spork getting a decent launch and straight over to the inside as they race their way to the first corner. He gets to the outside. He has to back off a little bit. And now the teammate of Alex Siebel is absolutely charging. Watch out for Dennis Jordan and Michi Hoyer. Skovron's got up to 5th position ahead of Jan Grankvist on those medium tyres, dropping back a single position as we head through Casino Square.
Yeah, that was a great start by Skovron. 2 places, and it looks like, there's someone in the background. That's one of the edge cars. Is that Denahan on a Chassis Panthers, I think, gone for a spin as they come into the hairpin for the first time. Side-by-side action there. That is Denahan, actually, with Callas trying to work his way up into that P9 position. And it looks like a fairly clean start overall, apart from the Chassis Panthers having a bit of a spin out the casino. Yeah,
there was a bit of a bad exit as well from Sander Callas, I do believe. Just in the back, they had to get onto the button, onto push to pass. Jan Wojnitzer was looking to the inside of Janis Brakshock, heading down into the Nivelle chicane. Wasn't fancying that one in the Netrex P1 Sim Grand Prix car, but did still give it a good look, trying to get past our nice competition. Got to worry about Jake Denahan directly behind as well. Couple of changes on tyres, of course, as there's the move to the inside. Colin Spork was looking, coming down into the Ratscast. Up towards Anthony Nose they go, and he could be a sitting duck for Dennis Jordan.
Oh, that was a big, important move potentially for Colin Sport, because if he got that track position, he can control the pace and the tyre wear, therefore, and also not sitting in the dirty air. Alex Ebel able to hold on to that. I wonder if there's a little bit of damage on either, though, which could obviously hinder their tyre wear as we go through the stint.
You've got to say, though, do you not think that kind of move, is it worth the risk? You're leading the championship. Yes, of course, you'd be losing points if you finish in second. But to risk something like that, you're almost 9 times out of 10. If you're throwing it down the inside, coming down to Larascas that late, you're going to spin the guy out. You're going to get a penalty for that.
Yeah, you certainly are. And Spork doesn't really need to take the risk either, because he is leading the championship by almost a race victory. But I guess what he doesn't want is Alex Siebel holding him up in towards Dennis Jordan. Although, as we know, Siebel isn't necessarily the one to play games like that. But for sure, it's an option. And something that we saw last time out in Monza was the 2 Red Bulls and the 2 bursts at the front. And that's what we see again. But now it's Colin Sport getting involved as well.
Yeah, Alex Siebel is not looking super fast. Now, this is telling me a couple of things as to what he might be doing. There's Colin Sport to the inside, and he absolutely hammers Alex Siebel out of the way. Colin Sport charging at the moment. There was a little bit of a slow exit, a slow run through the swimming pool section from Alex Siebel, and Colin Sport pounced. What do you make of that, Cam?
Oh, that was certainly late, bit of contact, but I think this means Spork might be on a 2-stop strategy. I think he's just going to fly away now and try and make this work. We do know that the Red Bull guys generally like to try a 1-stop. We saw Jordan do that to good effect in Monza, but let's get a replay because this was very aggressive.
I mean, again, you could see it here, how slow Alex Siebel was through the swimming pool section. Boom, there was the first opportunity for Colin Sport to have a look. But Cam, talk us through this incident.
Oh, let's see how Sport... I mean, he's good car length behind, but fair, Siebel left the door open because it's almost like a double apex situation. And through that first bit, Siebel kept it wide. The door was open for Spork, and to be honest, he made the apex. So I don't know if there's much that Siebel really can argue with that, because it was firm and aggressive, but I don't think it was over the limit.
It was very, very aggressive, but I'd be inclined to say the same. I think it was super aggressive. You don't see that many moves like that around here. Normally they end in a fair amount of contact and definitely a couple of retirements. But for Colin Sport, that was his opportunity. He had to go for it. He felt it was there. He pulled it up to the apex. What more can you really ask for it? And I guess, again, to go back to it, that would almost guarantee Colin Sport being on a 2-stop strategy. We know that Alex Siebel, Dennis Jordan, Mitchie Hoyler, they do tend to lean towards the ideas of 1-stop strategies. They might be on a 2. Hey, Colin Sport might be on a 3-stop strategy. Who knows? I don't know why you'd be doing that around the streets here at the Circuit d'Azur, but each to their own.
But the thing is, he's already gained 2 seconds in a lap and a half, and a pit stop, I believe, is around 20 seconds, give or take, depending on your how aggressive you are on the pit entry, pit exit, for instance. But let's see how this one works, because the mid-pack here is going to be the crucial part. If this 2-stop works, if gaps open up, if people start to do things, and there's the splinters in the train, it possibly could work. But now Red Bull needs to make a decision. What are they going to do? What is Siebel going to do? Is he going to commit to the 1-stop? Is he going to try and follow Spork? This is a very crucial next sort of 5-10 laps. Yeah,
this, like I say, it's not just... It's one of those things not to try and give it even more gravity, but it is true, is that this doesn't just mean a major thing for this race in itself. It is a big thing for the championship. If Colin Spork can get one over on a day like this on Alex Siebel, then he will be riding into the final couple of rounds of the season feeling very, very strong indeed. DRS now being activated from a few. There are 2 DRS zones around the Circuit d'Azur. You've got the one on the start-finish straight, and you've got the one going around the tunnel, haven't you, Cam?
Absolutely, got that second DRS zone added compared to real life, which is the cool bit about the sim. We can do things like that, and hopefully just getting a couple of little moves into that chicane. But let's see how that one works out, because both of them are quite tricky. The straights, neither of them are actually straight, and the braking zone into them is very, very difficult indeed. As look at this train in the midfield, this is what could hinder those 2 stops depending on where these guys battle. Because imagine if you went and you pitted into this. I mean, it's impossible to overtake all of them.
Keep an eye on a couple of drivers in this train. You've got Jan Grankvist, who's on those medium tyres. What is he planning over the course of the afternoon? Same with Sandar Callas for the ground effect racing team. They're just off the rear end of Jake Denahan. That's kind of like, it's interesting. They're keeping up now. They've lost a little bit of ground at the start of the race, fair enough, but now they're keeping up with the train, a train which isn't that far off the back of the podium battle of Michi Hoyer and Dennis Jordan. They are now keeping up with it. Now, if they can time their strategy right a bit later on, who knows where they're going to be fighting a little bit later. They're doing the counter strategy.
Absolutely. This is a... I mean, do you overtake, though, if you're in the train at this point in the race? Because everyone's so close together. As all we've had...
Pans out. Oldemanger.
Yeah, Tom Oldemanger lost his front wing coming... That's an interesting place, actually, to have it, because it's not sort of the biggest braking zone in the world. So let's see how he's done this. As he clips the... No, he's just lost the rear. That is an interesting place, and unfortunately, he's dropped to the back, and he's going to have to make a pit stop.
Yeah, that was a bit scary as well. Now, obviously, he's just trying to get it spun around there, so we won't critique Tom Oldemanger too much there. But still, you've kind of taken a little bit too much speed. It's quite a fast corner. This one thing I will stand out. I enjoy this layout of Azure, where you've got that fast second chicane, purely based on the fact that it is so much faster than you think it is. You really do hammer it through there at high speed, and it makes this whole section flow, but it is very, very fast, and there is the tiniest margin for error.
Yeah, I love that as well. And also that inside apex is just like is Armco. It's not a curb, so you can really like follow the curvature of that coming through. Yeah, that was definitely that's probably about 2016 now or something. They added that in, so 6 years ago. Yes. And it's really a very good, very good addition. It is less awkward, and it means you can get a bit of a run into Raskas, as we saw Spork do about 5 laps ago.
Yeah, we'll see if Spork can continue to pull away at the rate that he is. At the moment, that gap is 5 seconds. But again, just to clarify, we do believe that Colin Spork will be pitting once more than everyone else. Now, at this kind of rate, he needs to be pulling away consistently around about a second a lap, because if that kind of falters to any degree, by the time that he pits, he will come out in traffic. That is going to be critical for his race, that he can build out enough of a gap that when he pits, he comes out still in the race lead, and that is not going to be easy.
Yeah, so looking at that 20-second gap, he'd be a couple of seconds behind Rainey and Leonov and Roivers. Ironically, as we've seen over the season, maybe a couple of friends that might help him out in that regard. But still, you're going to lose time having to sort all of that out anyway. So let's see how that one progresses for him. And also, he's pushing a lot. Like, that gap is growing a lot bigger than I thought it would have. So let's see how he's going those tyres, because even if he pits on lap 20, then that is already going to be at a point where the softs are going to start losing that speed, as you say, and he might lose that second lap advantage.
And critically, where he's starting to slow down a little bit, last lap time was a 1 minute 14.2. The lap time before it was a 14.1, starting to lose a little bit of speed. Alex Siebel's just hammered in his personal best lap of the race with a 15.0, which means the gap only came down 0.8 of a second. Now, if it continues that way, then the gap's not really going to grow that much, and this isn't going to be great for Spork in that sense. Also, got to remember that right now, because Colin Spork is trying to build that margin, he is pushing at 110%. He's trying to really wrestle the car. He's taking every little inch, everything that he can out of this circuit right now. Now, the problem with that is that you're putting yourself in a position where you are increasing the risk massively. If you're the likes of Alex Siebel and Dennis Jordan, you're trying to one-stop the race. You're trying to kind of relax at this point, bring the car in at its own time. You're going with the rhythm of the track. You're not taking as much risk. You're only taking 99% of the speed, which does make a difference at this level.
Absolutely, that little 1% is very important, but that looked very nice there from Spork in that sort of second, third sector that we saw him, and across the line, still about 5.5 seconds he's got in the lead. But you are right that taking that risk for this amount of time is going to be difficult to hold on to. So, yeah, for sure, it's not going to be an easy situation for him, but he thinks he's got the speed, and I'm sure he would have probably tested it out, done the maths, and seen that it's going to work, because this is in some ways the more risky strategy.
Yeah, and if this to clarify, if this does work, he doesn't have to push it 100% for the whole race. As soon as he has built that pit stop margin, and when he comes in and gets onto that second set of tyres, if he has that margin and then continues to lead past that point, then it's cruise time. And I'm not joking. From that point on, you're just like, well, I've already got the lead. They also need to pit at the same point that I do. And so you can kind of bring yourself more into the race and calm yourself down at that point. It means that the opening sort of third of this race, half of this race, you are taking every tiny margin that you possibly can, which is very, very difficult. And I will say, I'm not so sure it's working right now. The last lap time from Colin Spork, to keep you updated, was a 14.294. Again, a tenth slower than the previous lap. Guess who set a personal best? Of course, Alex Evil. Yes, it was still slower, but it was only slower by 0.6 on the last lap, rather than the second that we're talking about that he really needs.
Yeah, that's definitely going to come down as well over the course of the next 5-10 laps. And I do wonder just how far is he going to go to really make this work. And also that second stint is going to be the important one, because that is where he's going to have a lot fresher tyres than the guys staying out. And also, even these guys in the midfield, we need to see, are these guys all one stopping as well, or are some of these two stopping, which will then start to open up gaps for Spork to make progress.
Yeah, and just to also say as well, we've got 3 different compounds of tyre in this race. And as I always say, you will only see 2 of them. You'll only really see the softs and the mediums. You won't really see the hards. The hards are let's be clear, they're not a great tyre, Ken.
No, they're very consistent. They're just consistently slow. So basically doing one long hard stint, you'd actually be quicker to do 2 soft stints in the same amount of laps, because you just make up that pit time because they are that slow. So yeah, that's really why you see the drivers try and aim towards the soft tyres.
Yeah, now the thing is though, is that around a circuit like this where overtaking is difficult, shall we say, you might see more people at least attempting the hard tyres to try and make the one stop work. It really isn't ideal, but you might just see a couple of people leaning that way to try and, like I say, get the advantage. Bit of push to pass and DRS being used there by Janis Brakshock as this train continues. Skovron, Grankvist, Brakshock, Jan Vojnica, got Jake Denahan as well right at the rear end of this 5-car train at the moment. But of course, there are 2 cars in the top 10 at the moment on those medium tyres. One is in that train that we're talking about here, and it's 2 cars ahead of Jan Vojnica, who was looking to the inside there on the Hungarian of Janis Brakshock, because of course Jan Grankvist putting on a great performance here on those mediums, really keeping up with Damian Skovron.
Yeah, he's doing well, and that although that midfield is now about a second a lap off the cars ahead of them, with Michi Hoyer and upwards. In fact, Michi Hoyer, Dennis Jordan doing personal best 14.7s apiece on the previous lap as well. So that is looking pretty good for them. They're still keeping their tyres in a good place, and Spork only did a 15.5, so that was only 0.2 quicker than Jordan and Hoyer. So that gap is certainly starting to come down in terms of the difference in their tyres.
Yeah, it was just half a second between Spork and Siebel on the difference of previous lap times. Previous lap time from Colin Spork, as he's just crossed the line, was a 14.4. And as Alex Siebel races his way towards the lines of 15.0, so it goes back up to about 0.6 between them. But even still, for at least by our calculations, it doesn't seem like it would be enough. Colin Spork needs to find something a little bit more at the moment, because right now the crucial thing is that he is going to find himself in traffic. Maybe it's not so much the majority of traffic that's the problem. He needs to build himself up 20 seconds, not to Siebel, Jordan and Hoyer, but to this train. It's already out to 14 seconds. That's the absolutely crucial one for Colin Spork to essentially jump before we head into the pit lane sequence.
Yeah, looking how it's working out, Damian Skovron could be Spork's target. 14 seconds at this moment in time, almost 15. If he can get ahead of Skovron when he pits, that would be amazing for his race. But he's still got 5 seconds to do that. And considering it's only lap 12 in the race, he might have enough laps to do so. If he can skip out basically that whole midfield, I think that's going to be the big key in this race.
And there is Skovron just pulling out a little bit of a gap as well over Jan Grankvist through the Nivelle chicane. Have you noticed Jan Vojnic's line coming out of the tunnel as well? He pulls it right the way over to the left-hand side before bringing himself over into the braking zone and making a very, very straight braking zone into the Nivelle chicane, which is counter to most people. You tend to hold it quite close to that right-hand wall as you're heading down the hill.
Yeah, because of basically because where the crown in the road, that generally is the nicer one. But I wonder if that's just to get big in the mirrors of Brakshock, make him think that he's going to dive it down the inside at some point. Maybe it's just to get a bit of a better sight. Who knows? But it's seemingly not really changing his race too much, because he's been stuck there for obviously the race so far. And it's very difficult when obviously you're in this train, because Brakshock is trying to overtake, which makes it even harder for Vojnica to try and find a gap.
The top, or rather the second, third and fourth, are back into the 15s. Dennis Jordan's got right up to the rear end of his Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports teammate in Alex Siebel, who's still in second position in this race. Last lap time was a 15.1. It was 7/10 slower than Colin Spork, so that gap going out quite a bit more. We'll see how the strategy unfolds more so towards lap 20, 25. We'll see if Colin Spork bites for the pit lane. Importantly, though, he is pulling out a sizable margin over this train. Skovron does not seem to have the pace of his teammate, who's currently running away in fourth.
Yes, certainly. It's a bit of a gap is forming there with the top four. And looking at it, I think, Dennis Jordan's closed down on Alex Siebel over the course of the last handful of laps. The gap did go to pretty much almost a couple of seconds between the pair. I think when Siebel was initially trying to follow Spork, but now that's coming back the way of Dennis Jordan. It's now within DRS zone for him, and Michi Hoyer's right behind as well. So that podium battle is getting close, but behind them, Skovron, he's really starting to lose the way.
Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports, so they... I kind of feel like I already know the answer to this question, but I've got to ask it just anyway, just keeping it open. Is there any method in the madness of potentially switching Siebel and Jordan, letting Jordan do something completely off-kilter on strategy to try and get Spork under pressure?
I'm not sure, unless maybe it's just a DRS thing to try and help save the tyres in some way, but I don't really know if that's going to make such a big difference around here, such as the way of the DRS zone. So hopefully that isn't Siebel in a tyre predicament, because that would not be good, because obviously he pushed for a few laps, it looks like, to try and follow Spork. So I hope that didn't potentially ruin his idea of trying that one stop, because it was, as we said, if you are doing a one stop, it is very on the limit in that regard.
Yeah, how far do they need to get on the one stop if they're going to do this as a one stop on the soft tyres?
Well over 30 laps, really. It's not going to be, as someone has gone for a bit
Adam
of a crash.
Rainey.
Adam Rainey. That frees up one of the drivers in the midfield at least, but I wonder if he's hit the wall on this second part of the swimming pool. Oh, no.
Turning too early.
Wow. I haven't seen anyone do that so far this weekend on that very first apex. That's very early.
It did tell me he wasn't feeling quite as comfortable around here when it comes to the practice programs and stuff, but in prior to the race. But it is what it is. Like I say, turning a bit too early. This is a circuit which bites. We have our first retirement of the day. Remember, we had just 11 finishers in 2021. How many are we getting today? I'm not so sure myself, but I'd say we're looking at higher than 11. I think we're looking for at least sort of 14, 15 this year. But based on that, means that there's potentially a few more retirements on the horizon. You never know where they come from.
Yeah, and the good thing this year is obviously the points go down a little bit further, so that maybe is an incentive for some guys sort of a little bit lower down than they would have wanted in very tight championship battles between themselves, as we're seeing the Red Bull guys starting to close up with Michi Hoyer following the way. They've got Skovron now about 7.5 seconds behind them, really starting to drop off. But I think the fact that the important factor is now Skovron is 18 seconds behind Spork. So Spork has almost got that 20-second gap to Skovron, and that could be quite crucial for this trio that we're seeing on the screen now.
Oh, a bit of an issue as well from George Chatzpantelis. Is there damage on that car as well? It sort of wasn't sitting right as he gets back going again. Something has gone on down into Mirabeau.
Yeah, he's replacing Kiersmakers, as you can see there, with the number 8 coming down. Is he going to do a bit of a Nico Rosberg? Yes, he is. 2014 Nico Rosberg there. I'm sure the yellow flags are out. And that was Spork actually going past there, putting a lap on him. So he's lost a lap, and this is
awkward.
This is hurting watching this rejoin.
I mean, respect to him, because he could just learn from a legendary 4-time Formula 1 World Champion, just reverse straight out onto the circuit. But alas, on that scenario, is watching out for where everyone is, and it isn't deciding just to charge straight back on.
Yeah, certainly that is a good part, but he's getting blue flags straight away from the rest of the midfield as we come back to the live action. Seeing Spork on the screen, 9.5 seconds. Last lap, he was slower than Alex Siebel last lap. Is that the first lap he was slower? It might just about be. Siebel was actually a personal best of the race as well. So are we seeing the crossover? But I don't know if that's going to matter too much, because in another lap or so, Spork is going to have the gap to pit in front of Skovron, and that really is where it's going to be hammer time, because he's going to be on fresh tyres when those top who will be the top 3 are going to be on the old soft tyres.
I still feel, though, that if Spork was aiming to win this race, he needed a bigger gap on those 3, on Siebel, Jordan and Hoyer. That's the critical thing. Like I say, right now he's going to come out, potentially, post pit stop in 4th place, set some great lap times, closes right back up to the bit back of Michi Hoyer, who is going to hold pretty firm. Now, we might need to see a couple of aggressive moves again from Colin Spork, but it would not be an easy one. We have our first driver taking hard tyres of the day, George Chatsapantelis, though, heading on to those green-walled hard tyres.
Yeah, I understand him. He's got 60 laps left in the race, so therefore he doesn't really have too much other option if he wants to try and go to the end. The hards probably could be stretched, but I still think he would take another pit stop towards the end, which is interesting to take the hards, but let's see how that one works for him, as we're going to get a replay here. We got Pinches, and let's see how this one works for him.
Yeah, straight into the DRS zone, closing up on Zolcic, his countryman, straight down the inside, maybe in a little bit too deep. No, he isn't. Absolutely super move there from the Arnage competition driver, Adam Pinsesh, of course. More akin to more so touring cars and GTs and stuff elsewhere in sim racing. He's had his fair share of experience on rFactor 2 though, but still looking very, very good in that scenario, and a nice little move from the Hungarian. His teammate though is a bit further down the road, as you'd kind of expect from a driver of Janis Brakshot's experience.
Yeah, it certainly is, and he hasn't been able to do anything about Grankvist, who's doing a great job, as we've been saying, on those medium tyres, just behind Skovron there. As we jump back to Spork, he's now over 10 seconds to Siebel. He did a purple sector 1 on the previous lap as he started to push again, a 14.5 once again, as the guys behind all in the low 15s, so he's still got the speed in that car.
Yeah, there's a little bit left in it. Obviously, you're not driving at 110% all of the time. You've got to back up a little bit, build yourself up, get the thermal degradation down a little bit, control the tyres from that sense, whilst we do speak of these more from a tyre wear, as in their percentage wear component. Thermal degradation is still a little bit of a part of it, especially when you're pushing lap after lap, right?
Yes, it's very difficult to do that as well. I mean, it's so hard to even just explain the concentration and the precision needed to get in a rhythm around this track. It's not easy.
No, and that's why we are in the commentary booth. Although, I mean, you did your bit of driving as well, and I've raced around the streets of Azure as well before. I held Risto Capet off for an entire race once. He was a lot faster than me, but it just proved that you couldn't pass around here. It was great.
Was that a reverse grid race?
It was a reverse grid race. You're absolutely right. No, goodness me, no, absolutely not. Never. I'm not quite that good, and I'm definitely washed, as the cool kids would say. Someone who isn't washed at the moment is this entire group: Skovron, Grankvist, Brakshot, Vojnica, all still fairly tight. Got to say, Vojnica wasn't looking super tight as Colin Spork. Was he in and out of the pit lane, or was that no? It was my eye, just as his line
up
the
hill.
hill.
Line. Yeah, did he? I don't know, make a mistake in turn 1, have a bit of a wiggle? Not sure, but yeah, he was certainly on the right-hand side of the track, which is not the racing line. So let's see. I mean, this might be absolutely nothing, but we just might as well check it at this point in the race. Coming through turn number 1, he's going to go on the wall. Ooh,
no, it was nothing. It was nothing.
Wiggle,
cool,
but nothing crazy. Yeah.
I'm just old. It's fine. Sometimes the eyes deceive, and on that scenario, they certainly did. It just looked like a very odd line from that camera angle from Colin Spork, but never mind. It's just us. Thankfully, our broadcast director, Felix van Delft, was quick enough to show us that we're not very good at this. But either way, Dennis Jordan picking up a little bit of DRS from his teammate in Alex Siebel. Michi Hoyer remaining at the same distance. All 3 of them lapping within 2/10 of your race leader at the moment in Colin Spork.
And look at Noah Roivers. He's on the hards there.
Interesting.
For Netrex P1 Sim Grand Prix. And that is certainly someone that I wasn't too sure was going to go on the hards. But anyway, let's see how that one goes. I definitely don't think about those guys going to the end from here, but it might push them a lot further into the race to do maybe soft again at the end.
Yeah, that's an uncomfortable moment potentially for them, driving around on the hard tyres. But no, Rovers is plenty experienced enough. Maybe just gambling with something a little bit this afternoon. 20 laps completed around the circuit at the moment, so there's still plenty of time for them to try and sort of find something else. A little bit of push to pass and DRS being used by Ivan Leonov, who's on the rear end of Sandar Kallas, by the way, on the outside rather of the top 10. That'll be on the race down towards turn 1. Sandar Kallas on those medium tyres, not going quite as strong as the other medium tyre runner up the order in Jan Grankvist.
Yes, I'm interested that there aren't more mediums at this point in the race, but I guess that just shows the way of the strength of the soft, because normally at other tracks we've seen a lot of mediums in that first stint trying something different, but I guess having the track position and keeping it is king around here. Kallas, as you say, not quite making it work the same as Grankvist, but let's see how long these guys go and see if they can do anything interesting, obviously being offset from everyone else. Yeah,
again, like you say, for Sandar Kallas, a driver that's got plenty of experience in the Formula SimRacing World Championship, wouldn't suspect he would be as far off. But then again, this is a circuit which has its specialists. You know, we do expect to see larger margins around here, not based on the track length, but based on the track complexity. And some drivers, they excel at getting as close to the barriers as possible. It's almost like a target, and they like to just get up as close as possible to them. Other drivers fear them, and it's kind of one of those things that you've got to respect the circuit and understand the circuit and sort of respect the barriers and the risk they have. Jake Denahan has retired from the race.
Oh no, Edge Esports not having the day of it. First of all, Chatsipantelis having some issues. Denahan, we're hearing, may have had a disconnection as well. So that is a very sad way to go out of the race. He was having such a good race compared to where he's been. Obviously, really, a pro driver, has been stepped up into the WC this year. He's put on some good performances, and let's see what he's going to do coming towards turn number 1. This is going to be a very sad sight of him just leaving the race.
Yeah, that is a very solid disco if ever I've seen one, and they are not fun to take part at. But Colin Spork, well, he's having his own little script here. What does he do? He's into the pit lane. He's onto the medium tyres. He'll be leaving the pit lane, and he should come out in 4th position, fairly safe ahead of Damian Skovron.
And that was crucial. And also, it's not even going to be close. He is miles ahead of the Polish Burst eSport driver. So that has worked out very good. And let's see how this one works out for the mediums. Interesting choice to go for the mediums, because that's obviously not going to be quite as a gain against the older soft tyres, because obviously the mediums are slower than softs had he chosen them. But this is going to get him longer in the race, and then he will be at the softs at the end when the other drivers doing a one-stop are on the mediums.
But this is the thing, is that he needs to catch Hoyer, Jordan and Seaborg, get past and get on with it straight away, because if he's behind them when all 3 of those pit, they'll go onto the mediums. They will essentially start setting faster times than Colin Spork, and thus they will close the gap back down. Then Colin Spork will go onto the softs at the end of the race, and then we'll have to try and pass them, all 3 of them, late in the race, which I can guarantee that passing them at this point in the race will be easier than then.
Yes, I mean, also, I think he's going to easily catch up to these guys.
I agree.
The important factor regarding him for the win is that it's 3 cars to overtake. If it was maybe only the 2 Red Bulls, or even just only 1 car, you probably would put your money on him. But the fact he's got to go overtake 3 cars on track effectively, because the strategy now is not so much in his favour, that could be the important part. But look how aggressive he was in Raskas already at the beginning of the race. He knows he can overtake around here, and he's got the confidence in the car, and he's already gained some time since the pit stop as well. So let's see how this one goes for him. But I think very soon he's going to be on the back of Mitchell.
Well, Jan Grankvist has also been in the pit lane, as has Ivan Leonov. So a couple of drivers entering pit lane around this point of the race. They're choosing now to bite for the very first time and come down to pit lane. And obviously on the previous lap, it was Jan Grankvist, by the way, who set the fastest 2nd and fastest 3rd sector, and he's just started another one, and he's just set the fastest 1st sector. So Jan Grankvist is absolutely flying on those soft tyres. I kind of get the vibe that already coming onto these tyres, Colin Spork, who is not setting even personal bests really, I get the feeling that he is already thinking a little bit of longevity on these tyres and not attacking them as much as they could be attacked.
Yeah, he's still gaining though.
Massively, yeah.
I mean, he's still got the speed in him, which is the important part. Over a second, almost a second and a half on Dennis Jordan as well. So you are definitely right. He's not pushing to the limit in terms of the personal best, but he's going fast enough to catch up. So you're right. I think he's playing the long game. I think he's making sure that he's keeping these tyres enough, because remember, he's pretty much got a push for the whole race as well, as I think that was it Brackshot maybe coming in. But let's have a look and seeing, is this Robin Panzer trying to make a move on the outside of the chicane? That's not always where you see one, but he might just about make it work. No, he's had to go past and then give that place back.
Yeah, indeed, Dan. Naturally, that's how it was always going to play out. If you hold that position after that point, that's a slam dunk penalty, so it makes sense for Robin Panzer, the Swede. He's had plenty of experience himself in the Formula SimRacing World Championship with a few podiums to his name. Never a victory, though, at this level. He did get close a couple of times. I remember back, was it 2018, 2019? The Circuit of the Americas was pretty close that year, but it didn't quite work out. Fell apart just late in the race as his teammates were charging. But, it is what it is. That was for ACR Zaxby as well, if I remember correctly, back in the day. That was a good few years ago, must be said. Colin Spork, previous lap, closed in a second on the top 3. Meanwhile, Jan Grankvist is just at the fastest lap of the race with a 13.4.
Yeah, it's really starting to come down. Grankvist there, he's already on the back of Callas, starting on those mediums as well. So if Grankvist can get past him, then he's got a big 15-second gap. So this undercut could be working pretty well for Grankvist, who's obviously on a 2-stop strategy from where he pit as well. So this is what I mean with these drivers in the midfield trying sort of 2 stops as well. I think this could be a very interesting race, because I don't think many drivers are actually going to be able to make this 1-stop work at least at a good speed.
No, and that's why if there's any 3 drivers on the grid that can make a 1-stop work in these kind of conditions, you would pick Alex Siebel, Dennis Jordan and Michi Hoyer. They have learnt from the very best, and they are very, very good at what they do on strategy. Let's see if Jan Grankvist, though, with DRS open, a little bit of push to pass being used from Sander Callas, a little bit of push to pass being used from Jan Grankvist, looks to the inside coming down to the Nivelle chicane, but Sander Callas defends well. He's got his position around the outside. That one's not going to work from Jan Grankvist, but he is very, very close. Instantly from our race director, as soon as he was looking, as if that was obviously not going to work.
Yeah, the exit of that sort of the second part of the chicane is so tight. The wall really pinches you, so you do not want to go side by side at that point. But Callas, he dumped a lot of push to pass, but just because of the nature of the push to pass here, you don't need to use it on normal laps, so you can really save up for these fights. As once again, both on the push to pass. Big dive here coming in towards turn number 1. Grankvist goes on the inside. Can he make the corner? No, he can't. And Callas goes into the wall as well. Have they both lost their front wing? That is going to be such a shame for them. And huge send down the inside, but unfortunately, like we've seen in real life a few times there, hasn't worked out.
Yep, we've seen some predictable things today, like trying to make a move down the inside of the Nivelle chicane when it's wet on slick tyres. That was about as predictable, though. It was very clear it was never going to work from Jan Grankvist. He was way too far back before getting into that braking zone into Saint-Devote. And it's such a small braking zone. Saint-Devote is such a fast corner, right? You're going into a braking zone which is, to be honest, it's way less than 100 metres long. And this for Jan Grankvist, you're not even close. And that is as predictable as I've seen.
Yeah, it's just too tight on the inside as well. So he was still having to brake whilst turning, and then obviously the front wheels just unload. You can't brake at the same point. And Callas, I think, will be very disappointed with that, because in some ways he might have been able to see it coming and brake a little bit earlier, but of course he wanted to fight it. And Grankvist missing the apex. I mean, he just had nowhere to go, to be fair to him. At that point, he was already turning in when the contact was made. And unfortunately, that's going to lose themselves a lot of time, especially considering Grankvist had already made a pit stop, at least for Callas. He had a pit stop coming up. So relatively speaking, he lost a bit less time, but still, he's way down on when he thought. But let's look at this battle to the front, because Spork has already caught up.
Yeah, Dennis Jordan seeming to struggle a little bit on speed the last couple of laps, and so Colin Spork is right there. He's on the rear end of Michi Hoyer, approaching 1/3 of the race distance complete. There's a tyre out there, though. There's a lot of suspension around. Now, that could be a bit of an issue. That will affect them. It's not as if the damage there, the debris is invisible. You do have to worry about it. And now Colin Spork's looking to the outside of Hoyer.
Oh, this is very intense. Hoyer, you saw that little defensive line into Raskas. He obviously probably saw what he did to Siebel. Spork needs to be careful, though. he needs to be careful. There's 50 laps left in the race. He doesn't need to win the race here. Of course, it's crucial moments of the race, but he doesn't need to dive it down the inside and basically crash with Hoyer and then just let the two Red Bulls, go off and get an easy victory.
Yeah, it is crucial for him and his championship to not really rush this. Hoyer holding the middle part of the road as he did on the run down into the Raskas. I think that debris does belong to George Chatzipantelis, so it's a second retirement for Edge Esports and a third retirement of this race. What does Colin Spork do? He comes out of Portier into the tunnel. DRS and push to pass could be activated here, but of course Mitchy Hoyer has DRS as well, and Hoyer would surely defend the inside coming down to the Nivelle chicane. There's nowhere for Colin Spork to go. He's kind of alongside. He skips the chicane, but obviously he's going to hold that position back. What you were seeing, what we heard from race direction before the race in the briefing, is that you need to be basically as near as makes a difference fully alongside before turning into the Nivelle chicane to kind of define track position.
Oh, wow, this is getting very intense. More debris on the road in the swimming pool chicane. Fortunately, didn't actually seem to affect any of them, but this is certainly a very difficult part of the race. A high-pressure situation for all, really, four of these drivers. There's more debris on the XL turn one. Someone else has gone for a crash.
Danny Van Der Neat and Jan Grankvist.
Yeah, loads of guys gone out of the race, and we're already down to that 14 mark that you said a bit earlier, with Callas one lap down as well. So as the laps go on, the attrition is coming.
Yeah, we were looking good for it being just 14. Now I'm feeling like we're going to be finishing on just about 10 or 11 at this rate. A few retirements late on there. Bit of a shame for Jan Grankvist, who'd had a superb drive prior to that retirement. But, with the instant that he had into Saint-Devot, it kind of added to his issues. And so, fair enough. Another one to throw into what could be quite a large junkyard, as here comes a big dive from Colin Spork. A little bit of a movement in the braking zone from Mitchy Hoyer. And there's the potential half spin from Colin Spork, just getting all over the rear end of the German.
Yeah, and that is, obviously he slowed Mitchy down quite a lot with the lines that they took. And then, of course, just touching the rear of Hoyer. And that's actually let Dennis Jordan off the hook a little bit as well. So this is what I'm saying. Spork, he needs to calm down a little bit here. This is getting too heated, really, because this is so early in the Grand Prix to be having a big dive down the inside there.
Yeah, almost close to seeming like he's racing against some AI at the moment rather than competitors. It was a bit bold down into the Nivelle chicane. Got to say, Mitchy Hoyer did move in the braking zone, though, which is a very solid no-no. But either way, they continue on in third and fourth at the moment. The tight line being held. Big snap of oversteer from Colin Spork coming into Casino Square, so he's definitely not going to get a move down the inside into Mirabeau, but he is very close.
Yeah, this is going to be so difficult because, of course, the two ahead, obviously probably trying to save a little bit of tyre still, and they're having to use some of that to defend. So let's see how this one is really going to work for Spork, because it is such a difficult position to be in.
Yeah, and that was not a great exit from Portier there for Colin Spork. So he's right on the rear end once again, almost into the rear of Mitchy Hoyer. He has so much more speed right now than the two ahead, courtesy of the fresher tyres. But he's getting frustrated at the moment. He wants to win this race. That tyre is still lingering through the swimming pool section. We have a little bit of a word with the virtual marshals after this. There's the defensive line being held from Mitchy Hoyer around the outside. Just about enough space given, but that was never going to work. And now coming out of anti-nodes onto the start-finish straight. Colin Spork's close. Push to pass being used from Mitchy Hoyer. So we're not going to see a repeat of the incident between Jan Grankvist that we saw a little bit earlier on in the race. And we'll skip that one.
Yes, this is this is so difficult for Spork. Just remember as well, Spork has something about 20-point gap as well. So it's very interesting to see. Big dive there down towards Mirabeau, and this is certainly getting very tense. He's looking at the parts of the track where he can try and make a move, but Hoyer at the moment is able to hold on. I think it's good, obviously, that he's got Dennis right in front of him, which is certainly helping, but for sure, this is going to be difficult, because when you've got two cars ahead, Mitchy then can't really dive into the braking zone because he's so close to Dennis as well.
Yeah, got to say, it's a little bit suspect. There's the move from Colin Spork, looks to the inside. It's a little bit suspect that Dennis Jordan's dropped back to Mitchy Hoyer, of course. I'm obviously struggling a little bit on speed, but you kind of suggest he'd be around the same speed of his teammate, especially after the little bit of contact that was between Spork and Hoyer. You would have assumed they would have pulled out a bigger gap. You do know that those lot do sort of talk a little bit between the races, as there's the look to the outside from Colin Spork. Well, maybe it's Dennis Jordan helping out Mitchy Hoyer just a little bit this afternoon.
Yeah, this is certainly getting to a point. I mean, obviously, it's going to... I mean, they're over... getting into the 30 laps now. We need to see how long these guys are going to go, but this is a run. Spork, this is going to be very close up the top. There's a bit of a kink in the straight, and the two giving each other room just about. Spork to the outside of the casino. Contact between the two. Is he going to dive in? No, he's just backing out, but this is certainly tight.
Yes, it is, and that's a bit of a moment from Mitchy Hoyer and Colin Spork to the inside as they head down towards Mirabeau. He forces his way through, and Colin Spork does now finally get up into third position. It was a little bit of a mistake there going through Casino Square from Mitchy Hoyer, but a dicey bit of racing between the two, and now Colin Spork is moving his way up the order, but we're approaching the pit stop sequence potentially for the top two, and he's already lost out nearly 10 seconds that he could have been gaining on Alex Siebel.
Yeah, that was an amazing move by Spork, to be fair. Round the outside of the casino. Mitchy gave him the room as well, which is what we like to see. But just in the exit of the casino part, there's sort of a little crest in the road. Mitchy couldn't keep the car down to that. And now Spork all over the back of Dennis Jordan. And we are already on lap 33. Siebel now has a 7-second gap up the road, and who is going to make the first pit stop out of these the top three trying this one-stop? Spork, he's really trying everything now, but Jordan, of course, is trying to make his one-stop strategy work as well.
Yeah, back into the DRS zone. The central line being held from Dennis Jordan. Is it going to be a bad exit from Dennis Jordan as it was from Mitchy Hoyer? No, but push to pass is being used as they rise up the hill towards Massenet. Once again, a look to the inside from Colin Spork, but slightly lazily through the corner was Dennis Jordan. Now he's trying to assist his teammate in going to try and keep Colin Spork at bay. There's the look to the inside, but Dennis Jordan had that one covered off already. He was holding himself in the middle of the road. That was all fine from Dennis Jordan. Colin Spork was looking, backed out of it slightly. He's got to worry as well about Mitchy Hoyer, who's going to be very close as they mount the curb heading down the hill towards Portier.
Yeah, this is a very important point of the race. Dennis Jordan on the push to pass. Spork also on the push to pass, coming towards the chicane. Is there going to be a dive here down the inside? He's getting closer. He's getting closer. Jordan covers him off, though.
Deep.
But he's going to go. Both of them go over the chicane. I wonder if they both get cut tracks from that one as well. Spork's got to be careful here, diving up the inside of Tabac, but he just backs out of it.
Yeah, see, this is the thing, is that had Dennis Jordan skipped the chicane and Colin Spork not, then I think there might have been a little bit of a, yeah, no, come on, mate. Got to give that up at some point. But Dennis Jordan skipped it, Colin Spork skipped it, so there's no more questions on that. Dennis Jordan holding that sort of defensive line up towards Anthony Noakes, very close from Colin Spork. He's wondering, when is this guy going to come into the pit lane? He's got DRS and push to pass being activated. He's racing his way towards Sandoval, and he commits to the inside. They're fully alongside. They're both in the barrier, and that's a front wing and a rear wing missing from Dennis Jordan, who lights it up, and he flips Mitchy Hoyer around. It's classic action. It's amateur hour in the Formula SimRacing World Championship, and Alex Siebel has been gifted the golden ticket of victory as Damien Skovron comes into second.
Yeah, that was not the best piece of racing that we've seen between the two. Spork diving it down the inside, and to be fair, he was right next to Jordan, so I think he definitely sort of pushed Jordan into the wall there a little bit. Obviously, Jordan then losing the rear wing and just, not exactly enjoying the exit of the corner there as well. Mitchy Hoyer getting involved. Let's see this. Diving down the inside. Does Spork make the apex of the corner? Oh, Jordan does squeeze in there, but then obviously Spork then misses the corner. Both go into the barrier on the exit, which is not nice. And Hoyer comes flipping as he makes contact with Dennis Jordan, and somehow Skovron managed to get through the both of them.
Let's see this on board with Dennis Jordan. Does he kind of is just turning in when a car is there, so that's a bit naughty. He's struggling to get control of the wheel there, but I think he was... I can't quite hear because we don't have audio, but it does seem as though Dennis Jordan was still on power whilst kind of driving over that way. Basically, all I'm saying is that was not pretty, and yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I'll say that for free.
Yeah, not the best piece of driving. How does Mitchy get... Oh, he gets clipped there. Yeah, he gets clipped there by Dennis, which is very... unfortunate for him. Mitchy kept his wings though, so let's see. But for sure, Mitchy obviously trying to get through, taking some risk there as well. So as they come into the pit lane, we need to see how this one all works out, because it looks like Mitchy Hoyer in the background has also lost a wing somewhere, and this is going to be long pit stops for these guys as well.
Well, so Cam, I do kind of disagree with the old Mitchy Hoyer thing, because I do think that he was keeping right foot down through an accident, which is the most sim racery thing that I've seen. So each to their own on that one, but we'll see Dennis Jordan into the pit lane, into the box, and yeah, just a bit of a bit of a moment there, it must be said. Big shame, and another few really to add to the potential retirement list. We'll see what they can do though. Alex Siebel is given a huge lead, and he's going to use this time now to come into the pit lane.
Yeah, this, I mean, it's really going to be quite a fascinating race, which is how this one is going to work out. Obviously, we haven't got the gaps on the screen at this moment, but obviously Siebel's going to have a big lead. Spork is going to be obviously quite a way down and is going to be struggling to come back as well. So championship implications in this race.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a little bit of a technical issue on our side as we'll try and get you the tower back. We're just going to step aside for a very... Wow, what a dramatic race it has been so far, and we had our fair share of drama, but Alex Siebel has been in and out of the pit lane, holding on to a race lead that I'm sure, as much as he's done nothing wrong, will be still held in fairly controversial circumstance, and I'm sure will be dealt with a little bit post-race. I don't think Alex Siebel's done anything wrong, but for his championship rival, he has been dealt a massive blow, Cam.
Yeah, he certainly has, and this one is obviously... still to be worked out of how things are going to work out in the future. But what we do know is Alex Siebel is out in the lead. I believe, he's now made his pit stop. He's got 17-second lead on Jan Wozniacki. And of course, we're looking down to Hoyer in 7th place, Spork in 8th, Dennis Jordan in 10th place. They can still do things from there, but obviously not get on the podium.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I can't speak for race control because... I don't dish out any penalties, instant reports and stuff post-race, but I do kind of feel that Dennis Jordan is going to be dealt a fair penalty after that, because at least from my opinion, I think it was very solidly on the shoulders of the German, but it is what it is. It's happened now, and eyes need to be focused as we hit the halfway point of this race. And Alex Siebel, he had pole position earlier on, he did the work for that, and he is now leading the race by 18.5 seconds over this group. For 2nd place, for 3rd place, for 4th place, for the podium, Jan Wozniacki, Janis Brakshaw, Damian Skovron, Ivan Leonov's also quite close as Robin Panzar comes into the pit lane.
Yeah, Robin Panzar from that 6th place as well. Lots of gains to be made. And did we mention at some point when Roy was DNF as well? So yeah, loads of stuff happening over the course of the last few laps, and of course a lot to digest with how this one's going to work out. So we've kind of been off kilter a little bit with what's going to happen regarding the strategy as well. So certainly, a lot to pick up from in the next 10-15 laps.
Well, it's turned into a very easy race potentially for Alex Siebel, who will be leading by a very comfortable margin as we ride on board with Colin Spork. He's now in 7th position behind Michi Hoyer. Now, whether you think there's any blame either way on this side, I don't think these two will be particularly pleased with each other, especially after the racing that we saw a little bit from them earlier on in the race. The difference is that this time, Colin Spork will have to get past Michi Hoyer on the same level of tyres, the same level of grip. So this is going to be a little bit trickier than the original move.
It certainly is, and obviously it's just a bit of a rework of what we saw about 10 laps ago or so. And of course the situation has changed though slightly. Obviously this is now not for obviously the victory, but these two obviously may have a bit of adrenaline in them, and obviously incidents and things like that can certainly be difficult. But we're only just halfway into the race as well, so there's still a long way to go, and Spork still needs to salvage points for his championship hopes as well. We did mention earlier just 2 races after this one as well, so the opportunities are really starting to come down.
Yeah, and again, they don't know what tracks they'll be going racing at, which does add to the intrigue as to where we're going to be heading for our season finale and for the penultimate round of the season. It's kind of like one of those things of, if you're confident around here, you've got to make the most of today, and that's kind of the idea of it being this style championship. It's not about focusing too far down the calendar and thinking, where am I good at later on? You've just got to react on the fly, deal with one race at a time, and don't try and think too far ahead in the championship. But at this point of the season, that is easier said than done.
Yes, it's such a tricky situation, such a tricky race to be in, and certainly I wouldn't want to be in any of these guys' situations, to be honest. The pro race that I race in is hard enough, let alone at this level.
Also, kind of thinking about this, though, the likes of Michi Hoyer, Dennis Jordan, and Colin Spork all getting involved in that incident. Well, they're all going to be racing tomorrow as well, so tempers can't flare too much between a lot of them. But either way, as they race their way up the hill, Alex Siebel, this is his to lose, surely, from this point. And it's kind of one of those ones that Siebel is a strong enough driver, and again, I don't believe in the commentator's curse, but he's got the experience enough that he'll know to dial it back now to 95%. And just cruise.
Yeah. He certainly will. A 20-second gap. And on strategy as well, the 3 guys behind, all in the mediums, have all made a pit stop. And actually, one of them pit quite early, if I'm not remembering. So they might have to do a second pit stop as well. So that is certainly looking a bit better for him. So, of course, he needs to just really bring it home at this point in the race. I should say, he's won enough races now. He's got enough podiums. He's been so consistent, not just in FSR, but in other championships as well. He should know what to do from here.
Yeah, looking for his 3rd win of the season now. These will be gifted a few spots because you're absolutely right. The likes of Jan Woźnica pitted a fair while ago in this race, about 16 laps ago. Definitely would expect... Well, actually, no. Considering he pitted 24 laps into the race, maybe it's a bit of a stretch. I think there will be another pit stop from Jan Woźnica, but hey, I've seen crazier things. Definite pit stop for Ivan Leonov, though, at the moment, who has gone soft at the moment, running around in 5th position. So they will gain at least 1, maybe 2 positions in that battle between Michi Hoyer and Colin Spork as we ride back on board with Janis Brakshock, who didn't pit that long ago, just 8 laps ago. I would suspect that Brakshock should be good for 2nd place, provided he can pass Jan Woźnica soon. Damian Skovrod in very much a similar boat on strategy, looking for a 1-stop.
Yeah, this has worked out well for these guys who are just slightly behind them. They were a bit in sort of no man's land for a while there, with Spork obviously being able to pit ahead of them very very well with the pace that he had in that first stint as well. So they were looking a bit tricky, but for now, it's opened the door for a podium. And obviously, I believe all 3 of those guys have been on the podium so far this season as well. So certainly something that they are, not new to, but it's certainly a good opportunity at least.
Yeah, indeed. We had quite a lot of drivers taking a visit to the podium. Of course, Damian Skovron went to the podium at Spa after a fairly dramatic end there. So, we've seen him up there. Janis Brakshock we've seen on the podium countless times in the Formula SimRacing World Championship, including twice this season at the Japanese Grand Prix and at the French Grand Prix a little bit earlier on. Basically, yeah, they're pretty. It's a pretty solid top 3, even considering the complete craziness that we've already seen this afternoon. Which, by the way, the drama is certainly not done yet. Let's be clear on that one.
Oh yeah, certainly not. There's still plenty of things, and if you look, Hoyer, Spork and Jordan all in a line as well, and now into 5th place, and I believe they're sort of going to be there as well towards the end of the race with how this one's going to work and when they made their pit stops. So that is certainly going to be a battle that continues. One thing that is quite interesting is at the lap that sort of happened was roughly when Hoyer, Jordan were thinking about making their pit stop anyway, so they should be okay with their planned stint lengths. However, Spork obviously being on the 2-stop, maybe he didn't plan to take his tyres that long, so this could be a bit of a learning phase if he didn't practice this length of stint.
And one thing that could affect them doing 1-stops as well is I will guarantee they all have some pretty uncomfortable suspension damage right now, which, while suspension damage will make it a little bit trickier to drive, maybe a little bit boatier into some corners than others, maybe a little bit more oversteering into others, it will affect tyre wear in a slightly different way than you're used to. And that could also affect the tyre strategy towards the final moments of this race for this group.
Yeah, certainly. Although I do believe they probably would have fixed that during the pit stop.
Can they fix all of it, though?
Yes, they can. If you do a full repair, it's about 20 seconds or so, but it just depends if one of them maybe skipped that and just did the wings to try and get back a little bit quicker. Because looking at how it worked out, Hoyer obviously gained time on Spork with the level of damage that he had.
Yeah, well, we'll see if Colin Spork can try and find a way past Michi Hoyer, at least get himself inside the top 5. It's going to be a long afternoon, even from this point. 34 laps left to go around the streets of the Circuit d'Azur, getting super close to that barrier coming into the Nivelle chicane. It's one of those ones where you've got to worry not about the front of the car and how close you are with the front left wheel, but how close you are with the rear left. You've got to really know how big that car is. Thankfully, by the way, that wheel running through the swimming pool section, that is not there. Whilst it looks like it's there, it's invisible. It's not actually a physical object. They can drive through it. It's why we see them not darting around it. I remember having that in an endurance race once, having to avoid a very specific line into a corner, which was the line I wanted to take because there was a big bit of debris there that I wasn't 100% sure was physical or not, but it was still there and I had to avoid it. At this point in this kind of race, you've got to go for it.
Yeah, you certainly do, and it's especially as you say that first lap or two that you go through, you're really scared to hit it, because if you hit a proper physical wheel, that is going to be a lot of damage. But sometimes there is just a little graphical glitch when a driver sort of retires or something, and the for some reason one piece of the debris will just stay on the track. But fortunately for the drivers, that is able to be driven through and isn't phasing them just at this moment in time. But we're at this point in the race where these guys now need to work out what they're going to do. Just over 30 laps to go, so still a long way on these tyres if they want to get to the end.
Yeah, like I say, they've got to be thinking about the long game even from this point. We've already had a fair few retirements, in 6 retirements from this race, and there is no reason why any other drivers from this group can be added to that list if they get a little too complacent. Complacency is the enemy on a day like this, and that could still even affect Alex Eeyore. He's leading by nearly 30 seconds now, and so that opportunity to get a little bit too complacent, to get a little bit too comfortable, could be rearing its head more and more as the DRS was being used there from Colin Sport to keep himself very, very close to Michi Hoare. It was, of course, this part of the race circuit where he made that overtake. But you got to wonder that when he was in that group, he would have burnt an awful lot of his push to pass whilst trying to find his way past both Michi Hoare and Dennis Jordan.
Yeah, he just certainly needs to be able to do that. But of course, the way that the race is working out, seems that these guys have just settled down in their fights a little bit. We haven't seen the same level of risk that we saw a little bit earlier, which obviously was the main sort of issue in that battle earlier, was just the level of risk all those drivers were taking and having such a close fight. And it seems like they've just calmed down now that obviously the race win, at least for these guys, has gone.
Yeah, and you've just got to sort of rescue whatever you can get from the afternoon, which is, again, one of those things easier said than done. You'll be sat there in the car absolutely fuming, thinking, I could have gained so much more from an afternoon like this. And unfortunately, you've got to find a way of refocusing on what's at hand. I don't necessarily know if even a potential podium is actually seriously out of the question for this. And the reason why I say that is Wojnitz is doing a really good job at holding everyone up at the moment, because he's sat there, he's ahead of Janis Brakshock, obviously on much, much older tyres than Brakshock, and is holding Brakshock and Skovron up at the moment, and it's allowing Michi Hoare to close in at 1 second a lap up to the rear end of Damian Skovron, and obviously he's dragging Colin Spork with him. Timing could be critical here, but I would actually genuinely, hand on heart, rule out a podium from this lot.
Yeah, maybe not. You are right, actually, looking at those times. They are coming down, and I think maybe Spork is just letting him, as you say, being pulled by Michi Hoare all the way up to Skovron and co ahead, because they know potentially there are still things to come from that. Having said that, Spork there very fast into that chicane as we come back to this battle for the podium places. And Skovron just sitting behind these guys at this moment in time. And it seemingly looks like it is working out okay for them. But as you say, they need to look in their mirrors.
That was a bit wide from Janis Brakshock. He's obviously got the DRS open. Skovron's could be fairly close. But we've seen 2 attempts of overtakes into Sandoval, and we've seen a 0% chance of them working. So I would potentially avoid that one if I was Skovron. If I was on the blower as a race engineer to the drivers, I'd be like, yeah, Sandoval probably not the option there. Find somewhere else to make a move. That moment from Janis Brakshock just costing himself and Damian Skovron just a little bit of time. 30 laps left to go in this race. There's still a couple more opportunities, but it's just about when does Jan Wojnitzer come into the pit lane to take his second stop. Is he going to be told that Colin Spork and Michi Hoare are closing in? Is that going to affect his judgment and maybe think, actually, I'm going to stay out for a few laps longer to try and help Colin Spork? Of course, they are running in cohesion with each other. I don't think that's against the rules.
Yeah, especially with what we saw last time in Monza as well, between those two drivers in particular. So it's definitely obviously on the cards. I just think the gap for that is a little bit too big. I think Wojnitzer is just doing the pace that he's doing at this point because he pitted so early compared to the guys behind him. And I think that's just really the pace difference. He's doing well to hold on though at this moment in time. The gap did go out just a little bit, but it's now come right back down, and Brakshock and Skovron are really starting to close in. But they've never really been at a point, either of these two drivers, where they've really looked to overtake though.
So Laurent Kiersmaker's pointing out one flaw in my logic, by the way, of the 0% overtake down to Sandoval. Technically, Colin Spork did get past Dennis Jordan.
Technically, yeah.
Might count as an overtake. We'll level that at a questionable 50-50.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's leading now.
He's leading in that battle. Yeah, I mean, like I say, each their own on that one. However you think that instant went, whether it was a bit too bold of a dive from Colin Sport, whether you think Dennis Jordan turned, whatever it is, that'll be dealt with post-race. But I do find that kind of stat amusing. Thank you to Laurent Kiersmaker. I know, fairly amusing. But either way, Janis Brakshock still being able to keep Skovron at bay, but worrying about potentially trying to make a lunge on Vojnica, who's just staying out. Skovron's just set, or on the previous lap, set a personal best lap of the race, whilst Colin Spork and Dennis Jordan curiously had their previous lap times removed, obviously. That would be from a track excursion, which I can only think is down at the Nivelle chicane.
Yes, I think that's really the only place where you're going to be able to get cut, at least for the race that I did in Pro. That's the only place I got cut. But also the inside here of turn 1, because it's just like a floating curb, it's very easy to just sort of drive over the top of it and get a cut as well. But as you say, probably chicane is the best place just because of the difficulty of getting at that point. But looking at the way that this race is going, Michi Hoyer is still catching this group by about a second a lap. So give him another 5 to 10 laps and he's going to be right there behind these guys. Yeah.
And like I say, it's putting you in the ballpark of fairly late in the race and almost late enough where doing a bold dive, shall we say, is very much on the cards. Also, Dennis Jordan is, and this is the kind of bit where I'm sort of like, as the inner evil person inside me is sort of like, go on. Dennis Jordan is closing in on Colin Spork by around half a second a lap, which, just for sheer drama's sake, I'm all about. I would not want to be in either of those cars or in either of those teams right now, because I'd be looking at it thinking, oh, come on. But it does seem as though we might well have a fair train for second position. I think Jan Vojnica is going to be removed from it after a potential pit stop on the horizon, but the train could be Brakshock, Skovron, Hoyer, Spork and Dennis Jordan, as Tom Oldenmenger is very close to Sander Callas coming through the tunnel. DRS wide open, push to pass being used. Sander Callas holding the defensive line on those yellow walled medium tyres. The gut back and up and under from Oldenmenger is just not going to be enough there.
Yeah, not enough, but he was certainly thinking about it. The issue is to go around the outside there, you really need to get completely alongside and then ahead as you get towards that second apex. You know, just keeping your nose around the outside, never going to work. So yeah, Oldenmeyer needs another car length or so in that battle. And actually, he's coming into the pit lane anyway. So that ends that battle as he is in 12th place, coming in for another pit stop. He obviously had that crash a bit earlier in the swimming pool, which has turned the tide of his race, as we are seeing back to this battle for second place. Vojnica still holding on well, and on the last lap it was another best part of a second, not quite a second, but best part of a second for Michi Hoyer, still closing in on these guys as they continue to stay out. But Vojnica, he must be getting close to his pit stop fairly soon.
Yeah, but I think he might, as I say, might stay out for a bit longer just to try and assist his teammate up to the rear end of this train again, about 3 seconds off as Michi Hoyer, and then sister teammate, obviously Unicorns of Love being driven by the NetRex Grand Prix team. And so when you're Jan Vojnica, might as well help your teammate out in any way possible. All I can say is I think the post-race interviews, Alex Siebel's might be a little bit dull. And that's no disrespect to Alex Siebel, but it's sort of like, I just drove around for a bit and then eventually won. And whoever's on the podium with him, though, I think they're going to deliver something very interesting post-race indeed. I have absolutely no idea which two drivers that's going to be.
And it's going to be quite funny to someone who doesn't either watch the stream or the highlights, and they just see like a headline, Siebel wins from pole, and you're thinking classic, Azure Grand Prix. But of course the madness has been happening behind in the battles we've seen in the midfield. It's actually really good just how close it has stayed, although obviously Siebel's now got a 30-second lead, but behind them the sort of 10-15 seconds there's another sort of 7-8 cars really battling.
Yes, indeed. Like we say, we've still got a thrilling 25 laps in store. I have no doubt. You can see how little is being left on the road as Michi Hoyer's wrestling his Burst Esports car around this circuit as best as he possibly can. Colin Spork's close enough. We've seen him try some bold moves earlier, but of course that was when he was at the start of the race running a two-stop strategy, and so was trying to take way more out of the tyres than those around him. Earlier on in the race, when he got past Michi Hoyer, well, he was allowed out to be aggressive because he was on much fresher tyres in comparison. Now running it 1-to-1 on strategy with the driver that he's battling with is struggling an awful lot more, as you would expect.
Yes, certainly. It's that part where obviously the differences in tyres, the differences in driving abilities as well is making such a big part of this race. But just look actually how close this pair is getting to that top battle. Hoyer's almost on the back of his teammates. When he gets within 7/10, he'll get that all-important DRS as well, which is going to help him defend from Spork. But let's see, is Spork at some point going to be making a move? For now, he's just sitting behind, but he's certainly starting to push Hoyer a little bit more.
Yeah, he's pushed Hoyer a little bit through the Nivelle chicane earlier on in this race. I think he might be close enough to doing it again at some point. Very close through the swimming pool section. He's getting very close to that lunge that we've seen a couple of times. Bit of a mistake from Mitchy Hoyer. Could this be it for Colin Spork? He's got to look to the outside. He's committing to it, but Mitchy Hoyer with the inside line through Larascas. Oh, he's just alongside Colin Spork. There could be a bit of push to pass used here. There's certainly going to be some DRS, but that drive off from Mitchy Hoyer with a little bit of push to pass as well is more than enough to keep the Dutchman at bay.
And I wonder what Spork's thinking about diving it down the inside again into turn 1, considering what happened last time. And to clarify what you were saying earlier, the reason why moves into turn 1 is so difficult is because it opens up, just as you get past the pit exit, it opens up. You think there's loads of room, but then it pinches you right on the apex of turn 1. Because if you go to the very inside line, you're almost sort of turning back on yourself to get into the corner, into the apex of turn 1. And that is why it's just so difficult and why the racing line is often king around there. So he needs to work out how he's going to work. But once again, getting close.
Yeah, Brackshock's very close for second place. He's looking to the outside, coming down to the Nivelle chicane, but a good commitment on the brakes from Jan Wojnitzer, and he's going to be able to hang on to second place. But look at this around the outside. Colin Spork's taking a big risk, trying to get around the outside. Big moment from Mitchy Hoyer as well, and Colin Spork into to back. Super stuff, and the Flying Dutchman up to 5th.
Yeah, that was a super move. Had the confidence to hold it on the apex of the second part of the chicane, which is not what we often see as there's some contact. And unsurprisingly, Wojnitzer comes in at the perfect opportunity for him as Spork is right on the back. But now Skovron, this is now the battle for second place, remember. Spork could still get second place in this race. Brackshock leads, and now Skovron up onto the podium places.
Yeah, we'll take a look again at the replay and see how bold Colin Spork was. So he kind of commits to the outside. There's a defensive move from Mitchy Hoyer. It opens the door and just super stuff. Watch out for Mitchy Hoyer, who does make contact there. I want to see that again on board with Mitchy Hoyer, because you know how I am when it comes to contact on a straight, especially when it's with Mitchy Hoyer. Remember that back in the Circuit de la Sarthe, of course, at the French Grand Prix. Here is Mitchy Hoyer, so we're on board with him now. Ooh. He just lights up the rear end, absolutely lights it up on the exit of the Nivelle chicane. Colin Spork says thank you very much, but please don't touch my car ever again, and away he goes.
Yeah, Hoyer was actually a little bit unlucky with where Skovron was, because I think that put him off a little bit in the braking zone in terms of, I think he was sort of fixing on the fact that he might hit Skovron, which is why he sort of went a little bit deep. But that is obviously just the situation that he was in. And because he went too deep, Spork got around the outside and managed to make that work. And yeah, obviously on the exit, probably maybe a little bit of push to pass as well, trying to keep that position. But Spork has been very decisive in a couple of moves that he has made. Firstly on Siebel and then on Hoyer there. But now the podium awaits. The number 3 machine coming towards the front. Skovron's having a look down the inside now towards turn number 1, making Brackshock think about it, but doesn't make the move.
Yeah, this is where things get a little bit trickier though for Colin Spork, because the car ahead has DRS, and it's going to be harder for him to find a way past. That said, DRS hasn't exactly been the reason why Colin Spork's been making moves this afternoon, so who knows in that battle. And he will have superior grip comparatively to the 2 ahead, courtesy of slightly fresher tyres and arguably also being a bit of a faster driver, at least this season. But we'll have to see how that one unfolds. But look who's closing in on the train. You can see there's 4 cars in this train, being Brackshock, Skovron, Colin Spork, and then Mitchy Hoyer. But who's 1.5 seconds off? It's Dennis Jordan and the Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports. He's closing right in.
Yeah, he certainly is, and that could be quite big for the team's championship as well, getting that Red Bull a little bit higher, of course. But Spork, to be honest, I really think Spork is probably odds on to finish second at this point in the race, because the speed he's had today he's certain, and also the confidence that he's had today. He's been really on it. He finished, I believe, second last year as well, if I'm not mistaken. So he's got a good track record, and let's see how that one works. The issue for him is just like it was about 20 laps ago. He's got 2 cars ahead of him that he needs to overtake.
Yeah, qualified in second, finished second. He qualified in second this year, looking to finish second once again, but he's got a lot of work to do if he's going to get himself into that spot. Colin Spork is closing in. You can see second and third directly ahead. It's not an easy one, though. Skovron's looking super aggressive as well on the rear end of Janis Brakshaw. That's the critical thing. Oh, a little bit too deep on the brakes there. Colin Spork just manages to arrest it, brings it down onto the apex coming through Mirabeau. But you got to say, Skovron's looking pretty aggressive on the rear end of Janis Brakshaw, and Colin Spork's going to be looking pretty aggressive on the rear end of Skovron. And guess what? Probably Mitchie always going to look aggressive on the rear end of Spork.
Yeah, one thing we need from Spork now is we need him, obviously, to remember that there's still 20 laps left. He's been very aggressive this race, and in some ways it has worked, but also in some ways it hasn't so far. So he needs to be careful as well, just to remember the long game, not just for now, but for the championship as well. Because if he makes a mistake here and loses more time, he might not be able to get it back again and get points back towards Alex Siebel at the front. So let's just see if there could be some, obviously, longer term thinking coming into play here, because obviously Skovron at some point is probably going to try and get past Brakshaw, and then that is a good opportunity for him to slip past as well.
It's a bad that part of me is just sort of like, as much as I'd actually really like to see Janis Brakshaw and Damian Skovron on the podium, part of me is just sort of like, I want to see Colin Spork and Dennis Jordan on the podium just so we can have some beef post-race. But I mean, either way, focusing on the race at hand, they've got a lot of work ahead of them to try and grab that podium, but we are having a 5-way fight for the podium with 20 laps left to go. Now, the move into the hairpin is a brave one. We've not seen anyone try it, and I don't think we will. Kind of leaves you with the Nivelle chicane, with coming down into Mirabeau, potentially something up towards Massenet. Obviously, Colin Spork loves a good cheeky move through Larascas. A bit early on the brakes there with Damian Skovron, and Spork closes right in.
I don't know if that was Skovron early on the race or if it was Spork late on the brakes. He was right on the limit there, coming in. Maybe a mixture of the two of them. And Spork really starting to push the limits. And as you say, look who's now on the back, properly on the back of this train now. Down inside.
And there's the big move straight down there. That is the Colin Spork special as he moves himself onto the podium. A super drive from Colin Spork, returning up towards the top 3. He's now got Janis Brakshaw to pick off before he can take, to be fair, a hard-fought second place. But Brakshaw's not going to give that one up easily at all. I think Skovron could potentially sidestep here for Mitchie Hoyer, though.
I just want to see how these guys go. They had such a big battle already. They've been on these tyres for quite a while, and we've still got 19 laps left. So this is going to be a very interesting one on the tyres. Who has tyres at the end? And as we saw in Monza a few weeks ago, that was really the critical part as well. And Brakshaw, that's a bad exit. Spork here, he's going to be able to get up into second place, I bet.
Yeah, super DRS, of course, being used from Colin Spork. Oh, and Janis Brakshaw out into the wall. He's squeezing Colin Spork back towards the barrier. He's going to be in a bit too deep. Oh, it's going to be super tight. Brakshaw is able to hang on after holding that defensive line around the tunnel, and somehow Colin Spork doesn't manage to get through. But I got a feeling that Janis Brakshaw's going to be a sitting duck coming down into Larascas, which is exactly where Colin Spork loves a good drive. But it wasn't great for that final section of the swimming pool complex, and so Brakshaw is able to hang on.
I'm confused by that one. It almost looks like Brakshaw lifted off or something through the kink. There was just such an instant overspeed from Spork, but not enough to make the move. I think he might have been caught out a tiny bit by that as well, as this battle, as you say, 5-way battle now for these positions. It is hotting up once again.
Well, we'll take another look as to how some of this has happened. What was that bad exit like from Janis Brakshaw? I mean, like you say, way too deep, rear end struggling for grip, and instantly on that push, he knows that Colin Spork's going to be close, so he holds a wide line through here. He just misses the barrier. He had to lift a little bit to do so, but he's got the inside line crucially for the Nivelle chicane. Throws it in, gives just about enough room. That's super stuff.
Yeah, that was a great battle between the two. I wonder if that was just going on the marbles, or if Brakshaw is actually starting to struggle with his tyres or something like that. Very interesting to see him struggling in those two corners in particular. Spork's once again almost pushing Brakshaw there into the Nouvelle chicane, and let's see how this one works out for the guys behind as well. Michi Hoyer and Damien Skovron also in tight fight with them as well. But obviously it is Spork looking down the inside, made contact, pushed Brackshock out of the way. Is he going to complete that move, or is he going to give it up? I think that was good, fair racing, made the contact and didn't take the position.
I mean, I don't agree with it being good and fair. We need to take another look at it once again and see if Colin Spork tried that one and misjudged it this time by it's a risky move to try. We've got a little too far back, so we'll see Janis Brackshock having that bad exit again. But for Colin Spork, like I say, he was super close, and I just don't know if that one was fully on for that attempt. It's kind of how you do it though. If you're going to ask time and time again for a move down the inside of Larascas, at one point you're probably going to get it wrong. Yeah,
by fair racing I meant the fact that he didn't give up. Not the fact that he pushed him. Obviously, we don't want to see that. But I meant if you do that, we do like it that obviously you redress the position and then you try again and you don't just take advantage of that. And then you can obviously go for a second time and try and make a nice fair race that one. But of course, all these guys now in a bit of a DRS train, so they just need to find the place. And for some reason, it seems like Raskas is one of the better braking opportunities, but I think it's Spork only so far who's made a move there.
Yeah, you got to be super brave to do it. Got to say though, it could damage Janis Brackshock's rear diffuser, which would be certainly not great for Janis Brackshock. And I think he might be a little bit miffed at Colin Spork if that is indeed the case. But more things that we might have to catch up on post-race. But Colin Spork has been in the wars an awful lot this afternoon. As we expect when it comes to racing around the streets of the Circuit d'Azure, we'll see this once again as we're on with Colin Spork running around in the swimming pool section, and that is a little bit too late in the lap, so never mind. We can't see that on replay, but we'll just have to use our imagination on that one and just guess and put 2 and 2 together, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, and I wonder how long Brackshock can hold on for this. We've still got so many laps to go and so many attempts, because obviously being such a short lap, the laps come thick and fast, but there are 2-3 major overtaking opportunities around this track. They come thick and fast, and certainly it's a door will open at some point for Spork. He just needs to find it, just needs to work it out, and so far he's been looking, but he hasn't been able to make it stick. Brackshock's been doing a good job.
Yeah, the thing is, every time he kind of looks, he's asking for trouble. Now, the problem is that if he does something a little bit bold, shall we say, and causes a bit of a road blockage, well, that's going to affect Skovron, Hoyer, Dennis Jordan as well. It's going to affect quite a large part of this train. There's the defensive line, a little bit too deep on the brakes there from Colin Spork, who's right on the rear end coming through Anthony Nodes. Is there going to be push to pass being used here and a potential lunge down the inside? No, just DRS. I wonder how much push to pass is left in that Unicorns of Love machine, and if there really is any. I've not seen him on the button really at all.
Yeah, it's definitely a track where you can save it up, and you are right, he hasn't I don't think he's been on as much as some other people. They do have 100 seconds, which is the same for every track. So around here, obviously because there's so many laps, it's basically less per lap as such, so you do have to sort of save it up and sort of work out where you're going to use it. About 100 seconds is enough that even if you use 50 seconds, which is a lot in the first half of the race, you've still got almost a minute to go. So there's plenty of opportunities for these guys to work out where to use it, and maybe this is one coming towards the chicane. He's thinking about it, but not close enough to make a dive.
Yeah, pink machine on pink machine at the moment for second and third at the Azure Grand Prix. And right now, it is a very intense moment as they skip their way through the swimming pool section. Once again, is Colin Spork going to fancy something down into Larascas? Janis Brackshock holding that slightly defensive line, but had a really good exit from the final part of the swimming pool section. Once again, there is not many opportunities left for Colin Spork to make that one stick. Just 15 laps left to go in this race. He doesn't really have to worry too much about Damien Skovron, but I mean, Skovron is only half a second arrears of the Unicorns of Love driver, so each their own on that one.
Yeah, Skovron, as the season progressed, has got better and better, and it's good to see him fighting up the front. He had such a good race last time out, but unfortunately sped in the pit lane, which really ruined that race. But once again, he's fighting towards the front. And does he have anything to come back from this, though, or is he... I don't know really what his plan is from here, because surely at some point, obviously, Mitchie Hoy's going to be knocking on the door of him as well, but also he could go and take points of Spork and Brackshock ahead, so he's in a bit of a difficult position at this moment.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I've got to say, big thanks to Colin Spork for actually putting on a show here. Whilst it is such a difficult circuit to go racing on, his aggression has at least given us something to talk about throughout the afternoon's proceedings. A bit too much of that second curb, and once again Janis Brakshock is doing enough at the moment. The well-experienced Hungarian. I mean, we've spoken to him time and time again post-race. He's had countless podiums, and still looking for that elusive victory. Got very close back in 2019, of course, at Monza, but still waiting that number one to appear by his name. Today's probably not going to be that day, but another podium to add to the list.
Yeah, racking up the podiums is also a good confidence boost coming towards the latter parts of the season. Obviously, him driving in the Formula Pro series as well on the same car, that'll give him good confidence for that race tomorrow. So certainly all good things happening for him. Being the Academy champion of last season. He's not even pro, the Academy jumped up 2 places and he's really fighting towards the front.
And this podium train, where Janis Brakshock's not had a great drive off of Portier once again, so we're going to have another close run-in from the likes of Colin Spork. He's not going to be close enough to try anything, but this podium battle's going to grow very, very soon. Look at the 5 of them come through. Brakshock, Spork, Skovron, Hoyer, Jordan. Look at who's closing in, though. Jan Wojnica on some fresh, soft tyres is closing in at the moment on this group. He's dragging a little bit of Ivan Leonov with him as well. Could we see a 7-way fight for the podium around these streets?
I'm not sure if I'm ready for that after what we've seen, but you are right. It is getting close. Brakshock really is holding these guys up, and with still 13 laps, including this one to go. I'm just so concerned with how some of these drivers' tyres are going to look towards the end. And Wojnica, you can really see him in the back there. He's closing in. As you see on those soft compound tyres, new soft as well. In theory, he should be able to slice through these guys with, he's going to have a good, second lap or so, potential in that car.
Oh, God, it's that lock-up. They're essentially, for want of a better word, they're intentionally locking the rears a little bit into the hairpin to get a little bit extra rotation as they're putting through the corner. It's a mistake. You don't really want to be doing it too much because it burns the tyres massively, but still, you use it a little bit in qualifying. Sometimes, though, when you've got someone on the rear end, you just kind of get into the rhythm of doing it again, I guess.
Yes, you also have to set the car up for it a little bit around tracks like this. Fortunately, there aren't any sort of long, fast corners as such. You do have Massenet at the top of the hill, but the rest of them are sort of tight and sharp as well. So you can really get away with setting up the car like that. But of course, that if you do it too much, it just kills the rear tyres. So it's always a balance that you have to work out. But a little bit is driving style, a little bit is obviously your inputs and everything like that. But it's one of those things, it's a bit of muscle memory. You've got to do the practice and get yourself in the zone of doing it.
Well, whilst we're looking at this battle for a second, Brakshock versus Spork, Spork still not able to do anything. I do wonder what's going to happen at the rear of this train, where Jan Wojnica is basically there with Dennis Jordan, and he's going to be knocking at the door of trying to take over at least 1 or 2 of these positions pretty soon. Has the fastest lap of the race, not the fastest lap of the race, sorry, that actually goes to Sander Kallis, who's on a 12.4, but has the fastest lap of basically anyone in this group. Obviously being on those soft tyres, obviously being at the end of the race. Has he saved up any push to pass as well to go fully on the attack?
That is the point. We haven't actually seen much push to pass in the last 5 laps. We've been looking at the little for the little symbol, and there may be the little small burst here and there, but there hasn't been any massive drains of these batteries effectively with these guys, and they're certainly saving it up, and it's coming into the final 10 laps or 11 laps, including the one that they're going to start as well. So it's really opening up the door to have a late lunge in this race.
Damian Skovron having a decent run over the previous lap, but Colin Spork having a terrible exit of the final part of the sprint section. I was almost curious as to whether Damian Skovron was going to give Colin Spork a little bit of a taste of his own medicine with a bit of a send down into Le Rascasse. Did not happen, but he is sat there and he is waiting as they crest over the bump on the run down towards Mirabeau. Once again, just 11 more attempts, about 10 laps left to go in this race once they cross the line this time by. There is not long to decide who's going to be on this podium. The winner, though, Alex Siebel right now. Yes, I know it's a long way, but he's 40 seconds clear.
Yeah, he's had a good time of it. He's stretched that lead by about another 10 seconds or so on this stint and really just enjoying life. Obviously been helped by the fact that Brakshock is in the second place holding up this train. And to be fair, he's doing a great job of it. And it's not like he's massively slow, compared to what it would be. But definitely you expect these guys to be a little bit further up. Just the fact that they've been sat behind him for so long.
Yeah. And like I say, the more you sat behind them, the more hungry you are to get through. You're sort of like, I'm bored of this rear wing. When is my opportunity? DRS open for everyone in this train, even going back now to Jan Vojnica in 7th place with that superior grip on those comparatively fresh, soft tyres. He is right there knocking at the door of Dennis Jordan. This is on board with the pole going through Massenet. Going through Casino Square now, a little bit too wide though, did not hook the apex nicely there. Of course, got to get used, whilst the dirty air rather has been reduced in a car like this that focuses more on ground effect and stuff. It is still there, it is still pertinent, and around, you will notice it around the likes of Massenet and Casino Square.
Yeah, really in the fast corners is obviously where you're going to be affected the most, but you still get a tiny reduction of your own downforce in these slow speed corners and getting on the power, and especially when you're there for a long time, if you're not too careful, you can actually destroy your tyres. But if you save, and not necessarily save, but if you don't push in certain areas, you can sort of offset that, as these guys are just closing into each other. The gaps are just so close, and Vosnica, I'm sure, is going to be having a cheeky send on a couple of the cars ahead, because to be honest, if he picks one off every couple of laps, he could still get up maybe into 4th place.
Yeah, gotta say though that if I am Colin Spork, there is a move on the horizon. Like, for sure, there is going to be a dive at some point. There it is, a little bit of push to pass being used from Colin Spork. So he has saved some up for this part of the race. He is on the rear end of Janis Brakshock. He is charging right now. And when does that move come? Are we thinking it's going to be a Colin Spork special? Is it coming down into La Rascasse, or is it going to be earlier?
Oh, I don't know, but Spork, this is really the go time. You're right, he's all over the back. He's realised Brakshock is struggling, and look at that, bad exit once again. Brakshock just doesn't have the grip. Spork getting the run on the push to pass. This might be the move for that second place. There is a bit of contact between the two. That's not going to be the move.
Yeah, that was not great from Colin Spork, gotta say. Janis Brakshock was holding his line as the track opened up on the left. He thought that was my opportunity. He really needed to commit back over to the right, but that opportunity was not there. That was close to a very large incident once again, which we could certainly do without in this race. And so Janis Brakshock's there, but Colin Spork, he is really hungry now.
Look how close these drivers are, because that just backs everyone up. The gaps are so close, and any of these drivers are in such a difficult position, because it's either pass or be passed at this point with how close it is, and coming into well inside the final 10 laps now. 8 laps to go, including this one. It is really on, and Spork just needs to find the way past. We know he's got the speed, but we've been saying that for about 20 laps now.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's not been able to get closer. Of course, did have that contact with Janis Brakshock that we didn't quite catch the replay of, but he's been very, very close to trying something. And again, he'll be close once more as they head down the hill towards Portier, that very important 8th corner of the circuit as they head their way through the tunnel. He's close once again. It's a decent exit this time from Janis Brakshock. The DRS is wide open. The push to pass is being used from Colin Spork. This time he's going to look to the right-hand side. He's fully alongside, coming down to the Nivelle chicane, and he throws it onto the brakes. He throws it around the outside. Janis Brakshock still just about there, but Colin Spork, that was a super move from Colin Spork. A lovely clean one. It takes 2 to tango, and Janis Brakshock did give the room, but Colin Spork made it work.
And that's what we like to see. Nice, fair racing between the two. As you say, space given. And finally, I mean, it's got to be a good 20-odd laps that Spork was sat there, and he's finally off, and that is probably second place confirmed. I don't think Brakshock has anything left. Now let's see who else could potentially come past in these final 7-8 laps of this race. Is Skovron now having the opportunity coming up the hill? Is Brakshock's tyres done after all that defending?
Yeah, I kind of feel that Brackshock's going to be a sitting duck, but the car behind him, comparatively, he's battled with, he's held on from before a few times. He might well be used to doing so. It's going to be quite close coming down towards Mirabeau, but there is no opportunity for a move just yet. It is still 5 for the podium, only this time we're battling for 3rd, and it goes back down to Woźnica because Colin Spork has already checked out. He's gone a couple of tenths faster in the first sector, but you can already see in the second sector has pulled out a monster margin on the Hungarian.
Oh, interesting to see Skovron there. I don't know if he forgot or he just opened the DRS quite late, so definitely wasn't looking to make a move there, but I don't know where he's going to do it. You would say, obviously, Spork maybe had a little bit more confidence and willingness to do a ballsy overtake like that. I don't know the level of aggression that Skovron is going to do as he just taps the barrier there coming out to the swimming pool as well, but he's got to find somewhere because otherwise both Hoyer, Dennis Jordan and even Woźnica might be coming past him.
Wow, this is going to be a tense moment. Skovron's closing in. He's in that DRS zone. He's looking to the outside, coming up towards Sandoval. Oh, his contact with the barrier. What has happened to Damian Skovron? I think a large amount of brain fade there in the final moments of the race. What has happened to Skovron? Driving square into the barrier. Was he squeezed there from Janis Brackshock? Is promoted Michi Hoyer onto the podium. He's been on his roof today. What's going on?
I am very confused with what happened here. We'll see it on the onboard. Does he either get attacked from the car or the barrier first?
Straight into the barrier.
Just the barrier. He must have just been focusing on the right-hand side. That barrier comes back to the left, and that is a very unfortunate way for him to lose out the opportunity for a podium as he goes back behind Woźnica, of course, down into, well, even Leonov got past him, so he's down into 8th place as well. Here's the view from Michi Hoyer. That is very difficult to see his teammate, and now Michi Hoyer is going to be all over the back, and imagine Michi Hoyer's got past Brackshock up the hill, side by side, space given between the two, and Michi Hoyer, as you say, getting up onto the podium, and that is looking like an amazing move as well. Now let's see what Dennis Jordan can do.
Well, I mean, it's been a fairly entertaining afternoon. We can at least give it that as a watchword. Michi Hoyer onto the podium. I don't think we've ever interviewed someone post-race after they have flipped throughout the running of the race, certainly not around a circuit like this, but here comes Dennis Jordan on the rear end of Janis Brackshock, not close enough to try anything down towards Sandevot. Kick of oversteer as they head up the hill, but that's covered off a little bit as the road winds its way up towards Massenet. A little bit of a look to the inside from Dennis Jordan. He's not able to find his way past the Hungarian yet.
Yeah, not quite enough. You can actually see just the texture of the tyres. Both of them are really starting to struggle. Well, all of them are really just 5 laps to go that they need to circumnavigate this track, and let's just see who is going to be able to hold on to this one. But Brackshock, he's really struggling. I think Dennis Jordan's going to be able to find a way past in these final few laps. Is this going to be the one into the chicane?
Yeah, but again, he's got to worry about Jan Woźnica directly behind. Janis Brackshock holds that inside line. This is a look to the outside from Dennis Jordan. He's sending it in. He's fully alongside. He's driving his way. The same move that Colin Spork put on, and that is Dennis Jordan through. Oh, my goodness me. What an opportunistic drive from Jan Woźnica. There was a big lift there from Janis Brackshock to allow that move to continue, and Ivan Leonov is knocking the door at the scene as well.
And Woźnica could actually get Jordan as well in the final few laps. Jordan could hold on to this 4th place, but he's going to be really struggling as Woźnica now. It's just a one-on-one battle, no DRS for Jordan ahead, and just 4 laps to go. So Woźnica could get himself up into 4th place.
Yes, and which would be a super drive, of course. Those soft tyres are much newer on board with Jan Woźnica. We'll see the overtake once again. Looking to the outside, you can see there was a little bit of a miss of the apex from Janis Brackshock, but just about that. A little bit of contact on the exit. I mean, fair enough on that one, each to their own, just as they're scrambling for grip on the exit of the Nivelle chicane. But Jan Woźnica, he committed and just absolutely sent it.
And also that wall on the right-hand side was coming for Jan, so I think that's why he was trying to get every inch that he could. And yeah, as you said, I wouldn't really blame him for that tiny little rub, which is a lot less than we have seen some of the other drivers today. But this is absolutely crazy, just the way that this race has worked out, and who we've got on the podium, as you say. Obviously, the shorter repair times have been helped that, and also the fact that they were able to even get back to the pit lane as well. Obviously, just the way things have worked out. But yeah, certainly a very interesting race, very controversial race, and I don't think we're going to be forgetting this race too quickly.
I mean, you know me, when it comes to damage models and stuff, for me, all 3 of them should have been absolutely out of the race there, but it's their own. Oh my, Ivan Leonov. Oh, what has happened there, big boy? He's tried to get around the outside of Janis Brakshock, struggled to keep the power down onto the road, and he is out. Tom Oldenmenger also retires from the race in the final moments as well. It's all kicking off.
It certainly is. I think Leonov lost it because there's sort of like a little kink initially, and I think he just lost it on that triangle. Oh wow, massive send. That was never going to work. That must have been the lap previous where we just cut back to it. That was quite crazy. He tried it again with the DRS, and I think as he went for that little kink opening DRS, because DRS is open pretty much instantly onto the straight, I think just oh wait, no?
I think so. I don't know what happened there with Ivan Leonov. I can tell you for sure, as the wing just gets kicked up and sent back towards him. Janis Brakshock tyres, they've gone. They are done for the afternoon. He is really struggling, considering that send from Leonov and the fact that he was basically alongside almost immediately after, and he's struggling to get back to the pit lane and isn't that far back. There is clear issues on board the Arnage competition team. We do have 2 cars inside the top 10. We do have the 11 drivers going around at the moment, which is the same amount of finishes that we had last year on the streets of the Circuit d'Azur, so we're at least ticking that one off.
Oh, it's a bit wide there onto the marbles from Hoyer. 2 laps to go. Those tyres not liking it either at that point of the track. And he's got to be careful because Dennis Jordan is right there and will be wanting to get on the podium, I am sure. But yeah, this has been such a crazy race. And as you say, if Brakshock's tyres have gone, maybe Skovron will be able to get back up into that 6th place. The two are getting very close indeed for that 6th place. But high drama here as Siebel is already onto the final lap. As you can see in the top left of your screen, he's going up the hill towards turn 2.
Yeah, I don't know which of these two I want on the podium more, because obviously Dennis Jordan, you know me, have a bit of beef between himself and Colin Sport. Want to find out what they both think of that incident straight away post-race before they've actually had time to look at it, because that's the hilarious way of doing it. But for Michi Hoyer, the idea of interviewing someone who has flipped and then got onto the podium, just again, more baffling scenes that I definitely want to catch up on. Plenty to pick apart post-race. It's been a thrilling 8th round of the season.
Yeah, it certainly has brought all the action that we were more than I was expecting. Skovron up the inside into the final corner, not quite enough, but certainly one more lap to go for him to try and make an overtake. He's tried it already into his corner. Do not hit the wall this time around. He should have looked where he is. He's getting
my
closer.
goodness.
Bump on it.
How do you hit that wall twice? That was definitely a second bit of contact, but Janis Brakshock is really struggling here with a race up towards Massenet. We'll watch them into here, and then we'll have to check in with our race leader coming down towards the Rascat, up towards Anthony Nodes. It has been a drama-filled race here at the Circuit d'Azur, and this driver has known none of it. It is a 3rd race win of the season from Alex Siebel, who could potentially be racing his way towards a favourite position for the 2022 crown. We'll have to wait and see. Colin Spork in second, with Michi Hoyer across the line in 3rd. Before that, though, they've got to battle their way out for that podium spot, courtesy of how big that win was from Alex Siebel.
Yes, one of those things. The gap was so far that actually we'll have to wait quite a while. Dennis Jordan thinking about it, maybe into the final couple of corners. Not quite. Michi Hoyer holds on, but look how close they are into the final corner. These three, I wouldn't say necessarily a show that they put on for us today, but definitely a lot of action, a lot of controversy between the 3 drivers, the 3 different teams that they are driving for as well. And as we come into this final corner, can Skovron get in? No, just a bit of contact between him and Brakshock.
I mean, it was a show. It just, whether it was a good race or not, that's the question. At the bare minimum, it was at least more entertaining than I think most would have expected when racing around the streets here. We've got to say, Alex Siebel potentially had one of the most boring races of his year, because he just didn't, outside of the first few laps where he was obviously with Dennis Jordan. As soon as Dennis Jordan had started dropping back with Michi Hoyer, once Colin Spall coming to pit, he didn't see anyone.
Yeah, he certainly didn't. But the crazy thing is, after all of that, he's only gained 5 points on Spork. That does bring it down to 8 points, I believe, with 2 races left as it stands. So that is very close between the two. And I mean, it really opens the door for an amazing final 2 races of the season. But of course, we need to see how all this one is going to work out.
Wow. Again, absolutely crazy scenes around here. And it's another race that's at least delivered on the entertainment. It's a bit of a shame that we've only got 2 more races of the season. We're finding out where we're going racing next in a little bit after we've been able to catch up with the top three. Here's Colin Spork, though, a driver who I'm sure through the middle part of the race was absolutely fuming. By the time he got back up to second, though, that might have calmed him down a little bit.
Yes, this is going to be an interesting interview. That is for sure. I'm sure they're going to keep her nice and professional, of course. But after a heated race, getting drivers, to speak their mind is certainly, going to be an interesting one.
I mean, it's kind of one of those days where it's sort of like, I've been in this kind of position, not like obviously at this level, but where you've had a frustrating race, and they're like, "Yeah, do you want to come for an interview?" And they're like, "Absolutely not." Absolutely, because you know full well you're going to say something stupid. And it's kind of like, yeah. Sometimes just like, no, just go on, just say it. Just say what you think. That was terrible from Colin Spork. Awful. Is he trying to? Oh, did you see who he went up to? Did you see who he was driving into? It was the number 27 of Dennis Jordan. I think he is still a little bit beefed about it. But Alex Siebel will take the victory then, and we'll see the rundown of the order. Colin Spork marches his way back up in a second with Michi Hoyer. A roll couldn't stop him from getting the podium. No one could. Up into third place with Dennis Jordan in fourth. Jan Wojnitzer in fifth place with Janis Brakshok, Skovron, Panzar, Leonov and Pinsesh rounding out the top 10. Just one final finisher in the form of Zolt Schuch before we get to a slew of retirements in Tom Oldermenga, in Sander Kalles, Noah Roivers, Danny van den Niet, Jan Grankvist, George Chatsapantelis, Jake Denahan and Adam Rainey, the first retirement of the race. Quite a few of those retirements though coming in the second half of the race. We actually had a good survival rate, at least for the first sort of 30 or so laps. That is how it goes. And of course, we reach the point where we get to catch up with some of our drivers. We will pick Alex Siebel first, though, who, from your point of view, must have been, at least after the first sort of 20 or 30 laps, kind of a boring race. Talk to us about it.
Well, it's exactly as you described. I think after the crash, and not sure what happened, but after that it was easy. But I think, it just does not make fun when you don't have to push in Monaco and just have to do lap after lap. But that made things much easier, of course.
Now, obviously, when this round kind of aligned itself with Formula Pro, which is on tomorrow, has there been kind of like more practice put into this? That's not me saying like you've looked shockingly fast in comparison to normal, because obviously we know that you are quite fast, but just in the sense of with it aligning with Formula Pro, put in a bit more work because it's kind of both at the same track?
Well, I would not say more practice, but the same amount as before. We just practiced Formula Pro and just hopped in on the FSR server yesterday to get used to, of course, a little bit more fuel, I guess, and the 2 times tire wear. But it helped a lot that it was the same track.
Well, again, congratulations once again, and go and celebrate your win after a great pole position as well. A super drive from Alex Siebel. But now we'll head straight down to Colin Spork. Now, we will tackle that incident in a moment, but I want to talk about the positives of the day first. A great recovery drive up into second position and some inspired moves down into the Nivelle chicane and into Le Rascasse. Talk to us about those moves and where that kind of that boldness comes from.
Well, hi guys, first of all. It was a very enjoyable race. I tested a bit with Victor Ivanov. We tested a bit together with the tire difference and trying to overtake. And we felt like it was possible. So we felt like we had. I didn't want to, let's say, because I felt like I was like 3v1 in the beginning of the race with 2 Red Bulls and Michi and Damien at that point as well. And I just wanted to get the hell out of there and drive my own race. Trying to be as aggressive as possible on the strategy. Unfortunately, it didn't pay out completely, but I think it could have worked. I was happy with the car. We worked pretty well for this track, since tomorrow is Formula Pro, and I personally hope that it goes well there as well. I felt like I could overtake on this track, even though you might not believe that. But I felt like I could overtake, and it was a lot of fun. And actually, it went very well. So pretty happy with that one.
Now, obviously, we have to talk about it a little bit. What is your view on the inside? Now, obviously, you're straight out of the car, not had a look back on it, but an incident between you and Dennis Jordan into Saint-Devote. Talk us through it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know I was pretty aggressive because, of course, I needed to try and win this race. I felt like I stayed fair at all moments. I was driving really aggressive. I'm very sure they was kind of shitting their pants, but I was as well at times, and I tried to keep it as clean as possible. And I mean, I'm not sure completely what happened. I need to take a look at the replay, but I mean, I felt like I was quite late on the brakes, but early enough to make the corner. And then before the apex, we already made contact. I tried to stay as much to the right as possible. I think I even got a check cut for it, but I'm not too completely sure to like try and avoid the contact. But unfortunately, on the apex, it was unavoidable. And well, yeah, the only thing I basically know that was on the apex we made contact. Again, I need to look at the replay, but then well, of course, because we made contact, I went wide, because when you make the contact, the rear loses, you lose the rear, and you need to catch it, and then the front goes to the left as well. We hit the wall, and then after that, I think I don't know what exactly happened, but I think maybe we got stuck into each other or something like that, and I got forced completely into the roll on the right, and then Mitchie came through as well as a rocket ship. So when I saw him coming, I immediately let go of my wheel, because if I would have held my wheel there, my hands would have been gone. So yeah. Unfortunate that it needed to end like that, basically, the race, because yeah, I mean, it was the end for the fight for the win, but I really enjoyed the race after that point. I really liked the battling, and very well done to everyone. Mitchie with going side by side. Janos was very fair, and he was doing really let's say great defending with leaving enough room. So enjoyed that one.
These drivers are much more professional these days than I was. I would definitely have been effing and jeffing post-race. But either way, a great drive from Collinsborg to rise his way back up into second position. Congratulations. But we now must head to, I think, an interview first, catching up with a driver post-race who has been flipped over through the race, especially on the streets of Azure. Mitchie Hoyer. I mean, what a crazy race that was. Talk us through your perspective of how things unfolded.
Like, the moment I was upside down, I was furious. Like, I knew that the entire position was gone. Like, whatever happened, the worst that could happen from the strategy point of view at that point was be a P3 or P4 regarding what else would have happened towards the end of the race. But yeah, like when I was flipped upside down and Damien got past and then a few other cars got past, and then obviously we didn't have the standard pit stop but a repair pit stop, and like I came back out of the pits P7 and I was like 20 seconds off, and I'm like, have they already pitted? Like, is that my real position? And it took me quite a while to recognize it, and then somehow we closed in. And honestly, I have to immediately take the third place if someone would have told me mid-race that I'm still going to end up on the podium, because at the very point after the pit stop I felt like being robbed off the podium. But yeah, somehow I ended up there. Gotta say, I'm super sorry for Damien, who tried to do a move on the outside of, I think it was Janos, and clipped the wall, and therefore yeah, enabled myself the opportunity to go through. But yeah, I mean, I am super happy for that P3 in the end, to be honest.
It's another podium for you this season. Of course, not quite the form that you were at the start of last year. But you feel like you're finding bits and bobs out with this car as each round goes on that kind of progresses you even further? Because I know this is obviously a bit of a crazy race comparatively to the norm, but still, you kind of learning things still?
Yes and no. Like, every racetrack needs its own treatment with this car more than any other car in rFactor 2. So it's the most hardest car to get up to speed, and it's the most hardest car to figure out and set up. Regarding the races here, especially in FSR, it's not that much that you take away, because like as you've just mentioned, the crazy racing that's going on. I think I've seen a couple of overtakes today from various people, but I've hardly seen a clean overtake without any contact whatsoever. So that's obviously not what you would face in Formula Pro. Like if we had a race like this in Formula Pro, we would probably have shed load of penalties afterwards. So I'm pretty sure we hopefully don't see that tomorrow. Regarding the learning point of view, though, for tomorrow there is a little bit of takeaway, as we've seen obviously spots where overtakes can happen, and as we've obviously seen a few strategy things that can happen or not happen. And yeah, I mean, like for Formula Sim Racing, I'm just taking it from race to race, try to enjoy myself. Like the championship has sailed literally after race 2 where I did not start, and apart from that, the luck hasn't always been on my side this year. So yeah, I'm just taking each and every round and each and every result as it comes and try to just maximize and having fun.
Well, congratulations to our podium, of course, Alex Siebel, Colin Spork and Mitchy Hoyer, and all three of them. Good luck for tomorrow, where they'll be doing it once again. We'll bring back in Cameron Rodger, though. What a crazy, crazy race. I think even crazier than we could possibly have expected.
Yeah, that was not the race that I thought we were going to get. I mean, in terms of Alex Siebel, I guess it was, but behind it was a crazy battle. And good to see that people were trying to make things happen. Of course, incidents happen around tracks like this. So let's just see how how that goes and how that sets the scene into the final 2 races. Because now, as I said, I believe it's 8 points between Spork and Siebel, so anything can happen.
And it is super tight at the top of the standings. You can see it there, just 8 points. Colin Spork leads on 198. Back from him on 190 points is Alex Siebel. It really is 2 at the top of the championship. In fact, even that can be confirmed because I'm pretty sure that the load behind cannot close in. So it's definitely a 2-horse race at the top of the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. You can see there, as we are done with Azure, there is just 2 races left to go, Cam.
Yes, there certainly is. And of course, the track selection was kind of released, so I'm sure people can guess or have been able to work it out. But yes, next will be Indianapolis road course, of course, with maybe a slight change here or there from what we've seen in previous couple of seasons of Formula Sim Racing. 7th of August is coming your way before the final round a couple of weeks later on the 21st of August. And I'm sure maybe you can have a little sneaky guess of what that could be.
Yes, indeed. We are racing our way to the checkered flag of the season. And what a season it has been. We've not got long before we go racing once again at the Brickyard, 7th of August, as Cam said. But from myself, Lewis McGlade, from Cameron Rodger alongside him, from Felix Van Delft, bringing you the broadcast pictures. We must thank our sponsors in SimLab, 3D Wrap, and Masita Esports, and our broadcast partners in VCO Esports. That is us done for round number 8 of the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. We'll see you in a few weeks' time at the Brickyard. Goodbye.